Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Kick me out of S.H.I.E.L.D. I destroyed everyone in the Avengers. Chapter 61. You want me to give in? This is impossible. In the S.H.I.E.L.D. ward, Tony, who had regained consciousness, refused after hearing what the braised egghead in front of him said to him. He thinks he did nothing wrong at all. Why should I admit my mistake to the butcher? Wasn't it him who allowed Whiplash to perform on stage? Wasn't it him who brought the Stark family into disrepute? Why should the injured party apologize? It's not an admission of error, it's just a pretense to fool the people. Director Nick tried to explain. Does he know how famous Liaison is now? If someone provokes him at this juncture, it will definitely bring about a storm of blows. Just the rioting poor would give him a drink. This Iron Man Tony is an ignorant fool. He is the son of billionaire Howard. Isn't it possible to plan and then decide? Could it be that he just relied on his armor and thought it could solve all his troubles? He had to be so arrogant that he went to cause trouble at Liaison's press conference. Why don't you want to? Tony, you have set a big trap. The braised egghead tried to persuade him earnestly, but after he was rejected again and again by the playboy in front of him, he couldn't help but feel angry, and his tone of voice became impatient. You know you are joining in revenge. Have you made an alliance? Tony responded. So what? Director Nick said. Then you should know your position. Tony still had an impatient tone. What position? Nick continued. That is to ask you to focus on the team. I have worked hard to get the mechanical eyes from the Kree to restore your vision. I am not just trying to make you fool around. Didn't I pay the price? After Tony heard the words of the braised egghead in front of him, he seemed very unhappy. I paid the price for the large nuclear reactor device, which was developed by my father and passed on to Stark Industries. I don't owe you anything. Quote. You. After Director Nick heard this, he waved his sleeves and walked away. Before leaving, he finally said, You take care of yourself. I will let Captain Steve, Hawkeye and Black Widow attend the press conference. If you don't come, just consider the consequences clearly. Clang. When the door closed again, Tony, who was lying on the hospital bed, was still angry. He knew clearly that it was his good friends who kidnapped him. What about justice and peace? Can I just let myself be ridiculed? Tony took a deep breath. After more than 10 minutes. After he calmed down, it was also at this time that he received a message from Director Nick, informing him to attend a press conference. He wanted to delete it immediately, but after hesitating for a moment, he chose to keep it. Although he chose to go against Director Nick. But that doesn't mean he's a fool. Although he is an arrogant man, he is not ignorant of current affairs. It's just that in normal times, he just makes others give in. Because he is a billionaire. He is an expert at throwing coins. Does Nick know his creative ability? As long as he is given enough time, he can definitely clear up the name of Stark Industrial Group. It won't be too late. It will definitely come true. Why don't you go fool around with me? Just when Tony was about to endure the humiliation and bear the burden. Crash. Beach house. In the storage room where the Venom Armor 2.0 version is made. In a pile of broken materials that should have been an accumulation of waste. But there are groups of strange creatures twisting. They are like sticky asphalt and metal materials bonded together, full of the absurdity of technology. But after the small slime-like object gathered from the scattered materials, it turned into a savage creature half a man tall. It was like a suture monster, and its facial features and limbs were particularly penetrating. These things are also the defective symbiote products left over from Tony's research and development of the armor. Although it has been exterminated. But there is still a tenacious part that survives. They gather strength. In this moment when Tony has not returned, I chose to explode. Zila. The sticky semi-mechanical creature turned its palm into a sharp knife, and with just a slight cut, a large hole was revealed in the closed window. And the next second, this terrifying creature escaped from the narrow place at an extremely fast speed. He is a bloodthirsty beast. After breaking free from the prison, there will be an uproar. After the media spread the video of Milcom Industrial Group's press conference. This famous scene is talked about by others. Whether it is the great love butchers, bearing humiliation, to benefit the people. It was Comrade S.H.I.E.L.D who beat up the friendly forces and knocked Iron Man unconscious. Or, the revenge of the prince, from Ivan, which are both encouraging and exciting. Justin, the president of Doohammer Industries, also saw the news, but he focused on the whip armor and Tony's armor. He was amazed by the exquisite external armor. Although Ivan's armor is still a bit rough in his opinion. But the power of the energy whip cannot be underestimated. At the critical moment, the power grid was released to solve Tony's problem. After Tony's proud armor was defeated, can you even get up in front of him? Jas Ding's eyes showed arrogance and excitement. As an arms leader, he naturally did not lack wolfishness and wildness, but he was packaged as gentle in front of outsiders. But in the dark, he will also show the dark side that normal people should have. I have to go talk to this genius inventor. Maybe we can also make Tony suffer a big loss. Justin called his secretary's phone number and arranged a meeting with Na Fan. It's getting more and more intense online. When the Butcher has been promoted as the most righteous superhero, the plan for affordable electricity is also slowly unfolding. That Dr. Octopus is also the designer plus supervisor, under the supervision of the people, promoting site selection and construction one by one. What, you mean the robbery case on Dr. Octopus? This has been settled by Iron Fist Danny and his company's legal affairs. Within the limits allowed by the rules, the combination of money and public will is often unfavorable. Also at the same time, the wanted notice on the market about the super criminal Sandman has also disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never happened before. Knock on the blackboard and note the key points. As the days progress, the day promised by Iron Man has arrived. Crash. Just on that gorgeous stage, the red curtain was opened. What catches the eye is the gorgeous decoration. And on that hanging banner, the press conference for all members of the Avengers was also written in large characters. Under the leadership of the heroic Captain Nick, this time it was the turn of all members of the Avengers to take the stage to clarify. These superheroes who are not doing their job properly. Not focused on fighting evil. But he was busy promoting and giving speeches in front of reporters. Just like politicians vying for power. First, there was Comrade Steve. He held up the shield, wore the star uniform, and stated the failure of his work in a powerful tone. It was his failure to play a leadership role that led to Tony's drastic behavior. Here he is. Apologized for Tony's reckless behavior. He truly deserves to be Captain America. The aura that shines on him is strong enough. With just a few words, he established the image of a team leader. And his gesture of wiping tears from the corner of his eyes is enough to be selected as one of the top 10 touching figures of the year. I was at fault too. The Black Widow Natasha Romanoff also stepped up. This experienced female agent is not weak in acting skills. Under her explanation, these reporters shifted the conflict onto Tony personally. Not the Avengers. This is undoubtedly a top-notch ability to dump the blame. She really deserves to be a poisonous widow. Tap tap tap. As Hawkeye stepped forward, he also found that there was nothing worth preaching about, so he opened up his mind and talked about the various hardships he experienced in order to join the Avengers. For example, without a bow and arrow, you can only exercise your eyesight and figure out how to exert force at first. Just the first time you shoot an arrow, you can hit 9-10 rings in a row. After only 1 week of training, the key culprit was captured. Although he was talking about his hard times, he still had a sense of pride that came from his bones. Even if he doesn't have any unique abilities, he can still survive in the world's most powerful Avengers. His eagle eye is the most powerful archer in the world. Crash. The thunderous applause around him was also praising him. Because he is the only one who has worked hard step by step, and there is no other special ability. Moreover, this kind of publicity efforts are rewarded with speeches. To a certain extent, isn't it a typical scam? Launch a typical success story to gain popularity among the public. If you chase your dreams with publicity, you will be rewarded. Is this the widely circulated pursuit of the American dream? A theory that is still popular in the millennium. Did everyone hear that? You have to work hard, and your dreams will come true. Come join the Avengers. Captain Steve, who was standing on the stage, took the microphone and began his final statement, just like the highly touted mentor. The audience was thundering with applause, all cheering for this MLM-style speech. Tap tap tap. Just when the atmosphere of the scene was almost reaching its peak, a white arc of light flashed across the sky, and as the white armor landed, Iron Man Tony appeared in front of the public. This sudden scene caught everyone off guard. Even Captain Steve was a little stunned. But Tony used his exaggerated way of speaking to start the introduction. Wow, it looks like I saw it at the wrong time. Captain Steve naturally took over the conversation after hearing this. Although his expression was still a little stiff, he still said, "No, you came at the right time. Zila, but right here in Queens. That's not far from the location of the Avengers press conference." There was a strange noise in the sewer. First, an armful of mechanical texture poked out from below. Then the thick black substance squirmed again. Like a slug. The creature struggled to reorganize its body and appeared in front of everyone. It was like a spliced future monster. Full of absurdity and weirdness. And this is the cyborg symbiote that escaped from Tony's home. So hungry, so hungry. It chirped, and when its eyes swept over the frightened passers-by around it, it seemed as if it had discovered something delicious. The cyborg symbiote lunged at him. Ah! The people around here screamed and fled in all directions. Although they had firearms, they were still frightened by the monster that ran out of nowhere. A blonde girl was also running and broke into the alley. She made a panicked call. What? A cyborg monster appeared next to you. And it also used weapons from Stark Industries. When director George heard his daughter's cries, he felt angry in his heart. He had a bad impression of the playboy. In addition, this time his daughter Gwen was also involved. It's really unbearable. What else is a superhero? What other press conference will be held? After I save my daughter, I will come to trouble you again. George hurriedly left the building and led the police officers in pursuit towards the place where the incident occurred. Also in this dark alley, the blonde girl Gwen was curled up and leaning against the wall. In just a few minutes, she experienced a roller coaster-like excitement. You know, she usually stays at school. There have been no attacks by supervillains. Of course, this is also because he has not met Spider-Man Peter. If we had met a long time ago, we must have suffered the disaster of the Electric Man. Instead of being harmed by the cyborg symbiote like she is now. Zitza, the semi-mechanical symbiote, was approaching step by step, and just when he was acting recklessly, the news had already spread along the internet. It can be said that good things never go out, but bad things spread thousands of miles. Mr. Stark, what do you think of this monster attacking New York City? As reporters around the world pass on the first-hand information, Tony's smiling cheeks turned to frost in an instant. He came to clarify today that he was already disgraced, but he didn't expect that Peng Ran would come to disrupt the situation. Isn't this symbiote carrying the Stark family a symbol of trouble? I didn't do this, Tony said solemnly, and finally added, but I will go and put an end to this trouble. Boom! With flames bursting out, Iron Man flew into the air in his armor, then flew away into the distance. His resolute appearance made all the Avengers members who were still speaking dumbfounded. Captain Steve, are we going? It was Hawkeye who broke the deadlock. Go. Why don't you go? We are a team, Steve said firmly. Black Widow even jumped off the stage, walked straight to the roadside, and got on a black motorcycle. We will fight quickly. Just as the members of the Avengers rushed to the scene, Gwen, who was hiding in the corner, turned pale, and she watched in horror as the monster kept approaching. The smelly air kept drifting away. That bloody mouth. Looking at it naked, will be terrified, not to mention that this was still a teenage girl. She was already crying so hard that she still crawled along the small hole in the corner. Whoops! The slender claws of the beast are constantly extending. At that critical moment, Gwen successfully passed through the hole. Entered a house. Although she didn't know why there was a hole in the corner, she patted her heart happily. Zilla Zilla. But right behind that, there were waves of strange scratching sounds on the floor. What's going on? Gwen walked cautiously towards the house, but just after turning a corner, she saw a horrifying scene. She saw a living giant lizard man. Those sharp claws. Those sharp teeth. There is no doubt about it. This is a cold-blooded killer. But he was wearing a white coat, which added a bit of humanity to his terrifying appearance. The lizard doctor was seen slapping his head and growling in pain. Get out of my head. Quote. It was as if he was fighting something inside his body. Gwen was already so scared that her legs were shaking. She doesn't know now that she has just stepped out of the wolf's mouth and into the tiger's den. Bang! The violent explosion sounded. Behind her, The semi-mechanical symbiote also crawled out, roaring violently. He stared greedily at the girl in front of him, as if looking at a big meal. Gwen had closed her eyes in despair. She couldn't believe what she was going through. Will she be torn apart? Dad, farewell. Tears fell from the corners of Gwen's eyes. She was mentally prepared to face misfortune, but surprisingly, the two monsters did not attack her. What's going on? Gwen opened her eyes again with the idea of solving her doubts, and the scene that greeted her shocked her. That scary weird lizard man. Actually protecting her. How is this possible? Gwen covered her mouth with confusion on her face. She didn't know that the lizard man in front of her was Dr. Connors, who had done scientific research at the Osborn Group. If it hadn't been for the death of old Osborn, he was still researching a potion that could make the body self-healing, and he would have healed his broken hand. But he just died. This also indirectly led to a shortage of funds for his experiments. There is no way. After Dr. Connors succeeded in the experiment on mice, he injected the medicine into himself. As the night passed, he was surprised to find that his severed hand had recovered, and he had also obtained a more powerful increase. He turned into a lizard man. Due to his genetic changes, the wildness in his body increased dramatically, almost bringing him to the verge of losing control. But when he saw the innocent little girl in front of him was about to die. But he rushed forward without hesitation. Zitza. Two long knives stretched out from the palms of the semi-mechanical symbiote, followed by a thrust, which plunged into the chest of the strange lizard man in front of it. Then he jerked. So bloody. Dr. Lizard howled in pain. But in order to protect the little girl, he persisted resolutely. The file-size wound at the hole is healing quickly. Dr. Lizard opened his claws to fight against the monster in front of him. It was also in this fighting room. Dr. Lizard's eyes gradually turned blue, and the killing instinct rushing in his heart gradually awakened, and he even slowly moved back into the battle situation. His self-healing ability is too powerful. In addition, it possesses the hunting instinct of a cold-blooded creature like a lizard. After a while, the semi-mechanical symbiote has been knocked to the ground. One punch, one kick, another hard kick. Dr. Lizard vented his violence angrily and shouted, "I will never tolerate bullying of the weak." But the semi-mechanical symbiote was so aggrieved that it just wanted to hold its head and cry. He thought he just ate a few rations. How much he suffered in the laboratory. Now he is getting hammered by this big man. Is this too bullying? Just when the semi-mechanical symbiote was about to release a bomb from Stark Industries, hurting both sides, the turning point quietly appeared. Boom. There was a roar. That Iron Man Tony fell from the sky. Two monsters. Looks like I'm going to save the reputation this time. Tony raised his hand, and two laser beams were shot out, knocking Dr. Lizard and the cyborg symbiote away. Then his back squirmed. Several more pairs of arms were stretched out. Symbiote mode is obviously activated. Dr. Lizard tried his best to get up from the ground. He saw that his calf had been penetrated by the laser. Although his self-healing ability was not weak, it still took him tens of seconds before he could barely stand up. Villain Iron Man. He looked at the ferocious armor in front of him and remembered the bad news about him in the past few days. After Tony heard this, his face darkened. Super criminal. You are very courageous. It looks like I have to teach you a lesson. Etc. Dr. Lizard wanted to explain something else, but the man in front of him had already made a move, so he could only dodge quickly. When the girl Gwen saw this, she was completely stunned. She didn't understand why the lizard man uncle who was obviously helping her was beaten. He is a good man. Gwen shouted, hoping to stop this. But the Iron Man turned a deaf ear. He would not listen to a little girl's words. That lizard man must be a villain. Can you fight with a cyborg symbiote? Would this be a good person? I'll explain it to you after I defeat him. Tony concluded arrogantly. The cyborg symbiote, who was once again involved in the war, was filled with new and old hatreds. His eyes were glowing red, and without saying anything, he roared and joined this personal show belonging to Iron Man. Boom boom. The roar of the motorcycle sounded. The three Avengers were galloping on the street on their will-o'-the-wisp motorcycles. Captain Steve, at our speed, by the time we get there, Tony won't be finished. Hawkeye asked doubtfully. Then Captain Steve explains, isn't that just right? If Tony wants to be in the spotlight, let him do it. We are a team. Whether he defeats or we defeat, in the eyes of the media, it is all our credit. Besides, aren't we working hard? Doesn't it take time to rush to the battlefield? Isn't it normal to have a little traffic jam? Even if they leave late, as long as this feeling is expressed, no one will say they are wrong. And this positive attitude is often more important than the results. Quote. Black Widow also smiled after hearing Steve's words. She understood Captain America's little thoughts very well, but as a group and as a beneficiary, she didn't think there was anything wrong with this. After all, everyone is fighting criminals. I just hope Iron Man moves faster. In this case, we can get a bargain for free. No, we are friends, how could we have such thoughts? Black Widow took a deep breath and then said, we should rush to the battle quickly and help Tony, so that we can enjoy the fruits of victory with peace of mind. And the other end, bang, bang, a series of crashes sounded. Along with this came the cracking of the brick wall. The steel bars penetrated from the floor, like a ferocious steel jungle. The blood kept flowing. You can see Dr. Lizard looking exhausted. Not only does he have to fight against Iron Man Tony, but he also has to guard against the stabbing of the cyborg symbiote. He is too tired. The cyborg symbiote is like a confused patient. From the moment he met Tony, he started chewing like a mad dog. If it were an ordinary superhero, it will definitely eat it to death. But who made Iron Man Tony the one who created it? He knows the effects and weaknesses of all Stark industrial weapons. Tony dealt with it with ease, driving the symbiote into madness and making the lizard doctor suffer. And he, the lizard man, should be the hero enjoying the fruits of victory. But he was slandered by this Iron Man. He even pushed her to the ground and rubbed her. Is there any royal law for this? Is there any law on this? Gwen hid aside, trembling. At this time, her policeman father George also rushed to the scene, and he rescued his daughter from the dangerous environment regardless of the danger. Are you okay? Director George asked anxiously. Gwen shook her head blankly after hearing this. After a while, she said, with his help, I was not injured. Director George heard this and looked not far away. Under his gaze, the huge lizard man was being grabbed by the arm by the multi-armed Iron Man. Zila, give it a hard break. The lizard man's arm was dislocated. I didn't expect that this superhero with a bad reputation would also be saving civilians. George felt a little emotional. You know, on the way here, he scolded Tony bloody. I don't know what kind of monster he created. He actually put his daughter in danger. What an unforgivable crime. But now it seems that if his daughter is saved by him again, it can be considered a good thing. No, it's not. At this time, Gwen came back to her senses and said, it wasn't the bad Iron Man who saved me. Is it that weird lizard man? Director George looked shocked. He had never imagined that the weirdo would save his daughter. He looks like a supervillain after all. He was the one who saved me. Gwen emphasized. Without his help, I would have died long ago, at the hands of that scientific research product with the historical Stark industrial weapon. That lizard man is a hero. But he was slandered by the Iron Man and became a villain. This shouldn't happen. A look of indignation appeared on the girl's face. Her father, George, frowned. He must have believed what his daughter said was right. It was the lizard man who saved her. But then Iron Man is a billionaire. Even if he is a member of Congress, he dares to contradict him. Will my little director be useful? Also looking at his daughter's expectant eyes, George cheered up, waved his fist and said, your father and I will give that lizard weirdo justice. Bang bang bang. Director George took a few steps forward with the police officers, then drew his gun and fired several shots into the sky, which also temporarily stopped the people in the fierce fight. The semi-mechanical symbiote has been held by Tony's neck. Dr. Lizard also had a pale green complexion and fell to the ground breathing heavily. Hey, isn't this the director who takes the lead? Iron Man said in his angry deadman tone, why are you here now? I have already killed the super criminal lizard man. What super criminal? That lizard man is the benefactor who saved my daughter. Let him go now. George said, pointing to the mechanical symbiote, and then said, this is the mess you made. It is full of weapons from Stark Industrial Group. Total nonsense. Iron Man Tony's face darkened. If the situation was really as George said. Didn't you do something wrong? And beat up someone who is supposed to be a hero? If those media find out, they will definitely be in trouble. This must not be allowed to happen. As for whether he is the little girl's savior, when you come to this place, won't you become Iron Man? Will there be others? Tony said in his still strong tone. When I came here, I saw this green lizard man bullying this little girl. I took action to stop it all. As the leader of the Avengers, I will deal with him properly instead of releasing him based on your words. If this lizard man causes any trouble in society, can you bear the responsibility? Another big hat was slapped on my face. After Director George heard this, his face turned red with anger, but he had no way to refute the man in front of him. And also under his gaze, a look of despair gradually appeared on Dr. Lizard's face. He is the victim of this incident. He clearly did the right thing. He should be praised, instead of beating him to death with a stick indiscriminately. Anger, unwilling to do so, humiliation. The cruelty in Dr. Lizard's eyes gradually deepened. Tony, we're here. Just as the atmosphere at the scene gradually became tense. Motorcycles come speeding. 3 figures turned over. It's Captain Steve, Black Widow and Hawkeye. Sorry, we're late. We didn't bring any transportation today, we just came here temporarily. Black Widow tried to explain. Tony interrupted her speech and said, you guys came just in time to give me your opinion. Just as this playboy told me. That was supposed to be Dr. Lizard, the hero who saved people. But he became an accomplice of a super criminal. He threatened the little girl and almost killed her. It was the righteous Iron Man who arrived and saved her. But this ignorant director asked him to let Dr. Lizard go. Isn't this a joke? Director George, although you protect the people in normal times, we cannot hand over this super criminal to you. Captain Steve said with an upright face. After hearing this, George could no longer stand. Although he believed in his daughter, the words coming from Captain Steve's mouth were undoubtedly more convincing. He looked at his daughter hesitantly. Gwen already had tears in her eyes, and she said firmly, I didn't tell lies. A little girl knows the truth. Tony gave up the press conference and rushed to the scene. Is it just for fun? He was trying to save the suffering residents. Black Widow chatted with Hawkeye. Almost in a few words. This event was finalized. That is, both Dr. Lizard and the cyborg symbiote are villains. It was the heroic Iron Man who stopped their atrocities. What, do you dare to question? Ask Captain Steve if his S.H.I.E.L.D. partner agrees. You ask Hawkeye's bow and arrows if they answer. Dr. Lizard's face showed madness and despair. He just watched helplessly as everyone slandered him. He also cried when he saw the little girl who spoke up for herself being criticized. God, is this his fault, or is it a punishment for turning into a strange lizard man? But he just wants to change the world and heal more patients. He just wants to have a little more light in this world, even a little bit. When the last hope was stripped from his body, the hunting instinct in Dr. Lizard's body awakened, and he roared, I'm going to make you pay the price. I knew this lizard man was not a good guy. Look, he still dares to speak harshly. Iron Man Tony hit back and labeled him a super criminal. Captain Steve beside him also nodded repeatedly. When he raised the shield above his head, he shouted, crush the evil. They swarmed up, fists and kicks. Dr. Lizard, an honest man, was beaten until his nose was bruised, his face was swollen, and his body was covered with wounds. It was also during this period of constant beatings. Due to the genetic mutation in Dr. Lizard's body, his body expanded, as if it were inflated, from its original height of more than 3 meters to 8 meters in height. It was like a dinosaur coming out of the Jurassic period. The doctor's eyes were profound and he quickly identified the culprit Iron Man. Sir, do you think my revenge against Iron Man is not over yet? In that quaint old castle, Ivan asked in surprise. And in front of him, the man who looked like an immortal nodded, and as he pointed to the massacre in the courtyard, he said, Tony Stark's fighting spirit still exists. How can revenge be considered complete? It can only shatter a person's fighting spirit and hope. It can be called perfect revenge. It's still very early for this level. After Ivan heard this, he seemed to have some joints opened, and he became enlightened. Your Majesty wants to suppress Tony's company. This is much further than my goal. Isn't Tony the son of a genius and a rich man? If Stark Industries, which he regarded as his pride, was allowed to collapse. If his pride is trampled into the mud, that must be wonderful. Ivan nodded excitedly, as expected of you, sir. I can't do that, but we alone don't seem to be enough to bring down Tony Stark's company. Who said it's only ours? Dr. Octopus, who was busy on the side, suddenly raised his head and explained to Ivan. Don't you know that Hammer Industries and Stark Industries don't deal with them either? My lord has already planned it. Using Justin's funds to develop the brand new armor technology, and then letting him provoke a conflict between Congress and Iron Man Tony, we will reap the benefits. What? Ivan was shocked when he heard the news. Then blood surged into my heart. Father God is above. This is so gratifying. Ivan, get ready too. Justin is coming soon. Lizon was leaning against the window and said after glancing at the messages on his phone. Tap tap tap. In the conference room of Milcom Industrial Group, Danny began to receive guests from Hammer Industries. On the face of the group, Iron Fist represents the face of the group and handles various affairs. Respect and etiquette have been shown by his appearance. Justin, who was sitting across from him, was a little impatient and frequently interrupted his conversation with words, urging him to ask, when will the people who make the armor come out? From his perspective, this is also true. After all, he came here for the researcher who made the armor. But Danny felt the contempt, and a ball of anger came up in his heart. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Everyone pushed open the door and entered. Ivan appeared wearing the latest whip armor. This armor is colored lavender all over. After being upgraded by Dr. Octopus, it can also accelerate and sprint in a short period of time. If Ivan uses the small energy pile on his chest, he can also chase and fight in the air. The whip cord he held appropriately released the powerful energy fluctuations. Justin's face showed greed and wonder. This is cooler than what you see in the video. Just saw it. It's daunting. If these mechas could be mass-produced, huge amounts of benefits are sure to be gained. Let alone Stark Industrial Group by then. Even if some warring countries unite, they cannot shake the dominance of Hammer Industries. Justin took a deep breath and said excitedly, "Make a price, I want to buy this technology." Ivan shook his head and said nothing. 1 billion. 2 billion. 3 billion. How about you make an offer? What if it works out? Justin became anxious. Ivan shook his head and said, "This is a weapon created based on my father's technology. It is very close to me. Blood is thicker than water and cannot be sold easily. Blood is thicker than water between you and a steel thing." Justin felt like his intelligence was being toyed with. Ivan nodded, and when he looked at Lizon, he got his affirmative look and said, "You have to add more money. You have to add chips. Let us use a more reasonable way of cooperation." Now it was Justin's turn to scratch his head. He serves as president of the group. In the past, people were always favored to discuss business. Now I'm actually being blackmailed. If you don't talk about it, I won't sell it. When had he ever suffered this injustice? But he had to do this. Tell me about it. Justin pondered for a moment, but finally gave in. Our group invests in technology. You provide the money, and we provide the technology. For every armor sold, we enjoy 70% of the profits and dividends. Ivan said. Why am I only 30%? Isn't that all the hard work in vain? Justin jumped anxiously. It's not a waste of time. In addition to us, can you cooperate with Iron Man? See how he treats your old rival. Ivan said indifferently. Working with Tony's megalomaniac. Has Hammer Industries been suppressed like that? Justin scratched his head and collapsed on the sofa. He tried to argue. The price you're asking is too exaggerated. I'll pay for all the materials. You can give me 40% at most. At least 50%. Ivan said without any doubt. The movie theater's box office share is 50-50. You, a billionaire, still don't have enough money. You. Justin leaned on the sofa, his face a little red. This is to be angry. Does he know how promising these mechanical armors are? If sales are opened, not weaker than Stark Industries' Jericho missiles. Maybe even stronger. And fund it yourself. Do they produce technology? Isn't this a white glove empty wolf? This armor is still a chicken that lays golden eggs. But he can't cooperate with Iron Man. Let's just say 55 points. Overthrowing Stark Industrial Group is a big deal. Justin said with pain. From the perspective of overall leadership, it is true that after the death of Stark Industries, one family became the dominant one and the benefits were even greater. The profit sharing given to Milcom Industrial Group is a bit high even if the initial investment is high. Iron Man. Why doesn't he die? Why hasn't Stark Industries closed down yet? It cost him another investment. Justin made a note in his small notebook. Iron Fist Danny stood not far away and looked at this man with a sad face. He couldn't help but feel happy at that dejected scene. After the cooperation negotiations with Hammer Industries were completed, Ivan and the young genius Donnie from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles followed Justin to the laboratory for research. In the process, there were hundreds of members of the Shadow Corps. They protect. Iron Fist's eyes almost popped out when he saw this. This force could go to Hell's Kitchen and conquer several mountains. My brother, are you a little too careful? I don't think that guy Justin has the guts to cause trouble. What other people think of it is his business. I want to be foolproof. Li Zan's expression remained as usual. Iron Fist's eyes showed admiration. This kind of behavior of a lion fighting a rabbit with all its strength can leave the enemy with no chance of comeback. When Li Zan returned to the camp, the remaining 3 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were still practicing with slaughter. The Mouse Master escaped into the sewer. What does it mean to comprehend the natural way of tolerance? What a fairy mouse! Li Zan clicked his tongue in amazement. A frightening white light shone in his eyes, and he could also see the simple words flowing out of it. Just like the flow of Tao and principle. The energy in his body is accumulating more and more. The blood of the sacred tree in his body is constantly reviving. Crash! There was a sound of swaying branches. Behind Li Zan appeared the shadow of a golden sacred tree, dotted with light golden tassels and surrounding it, making him look like a god under the throne. It's like the connection between the sacred tree and the king in Elden's ring. Also at this moment, ding, a random mission has been detected nearby. The blood and tears of Dr. Lizard. Drive. Lizard Connors devoted himself to researching limb regeneration technology, only to bring the possibility of healing to more disabled people. For this reason, he did not hesitate to use his own body as a test subject. He failed, but he succeeded. He turned into a strange lizard man, and he saved the girl Gwen, but unexpectedly he was slandered by the Avengers members as a super criminal. This honest man was so angry that he wanted to make the superhero who despised him pay the price. Ding! After accepting this mission, the host needs to assist Dr. Lizard to slap him in the face and disgrace the Avengers. The rewards for this mission will be doubled depending on Dr. Lizard's gratitude. There was an unexpected surprise. Li Zan's eyes showed joy. In order to get Ivan's reward and double the critical hit, he set his goal to bring down Iron Man Tony's company. Therefore, the deadline for completing Ivan's mission was pushed back. But just when he was playing the long game to catch the big fish. Here comes another task, and it was Iron Man Tony himself who did it. What does this mean? Is this because you think Li Zan is not strong enough? Are you trying to speed him up? Then I would be disrespectful. Li Zan's eyes flashed, and the next second, he turned his head and looked at the few people fighting in the courtyard. Clang! Leo, the turtle boss, slashed down from the air with a blade. The sky is full of fiery trees and silver flowers. But that sharp blade, he cut down Mikey, who had the strongest physical skills, until he was half kneeling on the ground. His eyes were bloodshot. Roar! Dr. Lizard on the dark street corner roared crazily. As his body underwent tremendous changes, he became increasingly unable to suppress the abundant wildness in his body, but he did not need to control this fighting instinct. There was only one thing he needed to do. That is, fight your way out. What the hell, superhero? Dr. Lizard was an army all by himself. He aimed his fists at the Iron Man crazily, clenched his huge claws tightly, and fell heavily like a tamping machine. Under these successive attacks, the armor on Iron Man's chest began to crack. There was an overwhelming crackling sound. You know, in the past, even if Tony falls from 1,000 meters high, this suit of armor can still protect him from being injured. But now, after Dr. Lizard went crazy, he actually had such terrifying effects. Uncle Lizard, you have to come on and beat him hard. Gwen wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and waved her fist at the side. When her father George saw this, he was also very happy. Present. Maybe only the Avengers are unhappy. It's broken. Captain Steve looked shocked, but he knew that if Tony couldn't handle it anymore, it would be their turn next. Can't let this happen. Black Widow and Hawkeye looked at each other. The trio sprinted towards the two fighting men. As for the semi-mechanical and semi-symbiotic body, it was locked aside, staring with its big Kazilan eyes and its mouth already open in an O shape. Watching a play. Watching a play is such a beautiful thing. Why is this lizard man so powerful? Iron Man Tony made everyone stupid. You know, just a few minutes ago, he also pressed Dr. Lizard to the ground and rubbed him. But he was hung up and beaten. This is really embarrassing for him. Simply part of his armor is made of symbiote venom, so even if some mechanical parts are damaged, they can be repaired. The black, sticky asphalt-like substance surged out and landed on the white armor like bone-eating maggots. Not only did it cover the chest cavity with a thick layer of keratin, it also covered the chest cavity with a thick layer of horny substance. There were arms stretched out like the tentacles of a demon. Zila. The arm trembled and grabbed the lizard man who was still in rage. At the same time, Tony, who was hiding under the mask, suddenly lifted the mask. He smiled solemnly. Didn't you enjoy the fight? It's my turn next. The words have not yet finished. Clang. Captain Steve jumped up with his shield in hand, then slammed it down hard, hitting Dr. Lizard's head. The two long arrows shot by Eagle Eye also came after them. It penetrated Dr. Lizard's back, drenched with blood. Adding to the pain, Dr. Lizard kept howling in pain, but this did not knock him down. Wow, it was the Black Widow who passed by Dr. Lizard with a sliding shovel, and the sharp dagger cut his Achilles tendon. All of a sudden, lost support. Dr. Lizard finally couldn't resist and fell to the ground. How come? Gwen looked on, her heart already twisting. She couldn't bear this situation. In her opinion, no matter what, justice should win. Why now? But became the Avengers to gain an advantage? It shouldn't be. Director George was standing by. As a bystander, he stood on his daughter's side. And he was worried about the ferocious-looking Dr. Lizard. Although his appearance is not good. If the media sees him, he will even be called a super criminal. But he is a good man. He is only one person. But being surrounded by all the Avengers. So, who is righteous? Crash. Not far away, there were bursts of footsteps, and after the roar of the car, what came into view were reporters holding microphones in their hands, and photographers carrying cameras. They arrive late, but they are always so timely. Look, members of the Avengers are fighting a super criminal. That couldn't be a dinosaur, could it? Oh my god, that's too high. He must be super fierce. Hurry up and take a photo, there will be headlines tomorrow. Journalists chasing fame and fortune use the flashlight as a weapon. Crackling, white light shone on the ground, walls, and people at the scene. Like the light of the right path. Iron Man awakened in an instant. He stood up, and his dozens of weird arms danced wildly, like a demon warrior crawling out of hell. And Captain Steve was also posing, with his star shield not pointing at Dr. Lizard, but instead facing the media spotlight. In the process, Black Widow and Hawkeye also intentionally or unintentionally put on the coolest poses. It is conceivable that, after the photos are developed, how photogenic will these Avengers members be? This kind of hard work really makes people cry to death. Avengers attack. Captain Steve shouted the most powerful slogan, and before he finished speaking, they attacked the behemoth in front of them. With their full cooperation, even though Dr. Lizard had super strong self-healing ability and even though his external scales were extremely hard, he still found an opening and was suppressed into the corner. How could I admit defeat? Can I lose to these fools? Do I still have a lot of unfinished business? I want to be the hope for all disabled people. This pain can't defeat me. With a ferocious look on his face, Dr. Lizard pulled out the long arrows from his waist. He stood up several times like a weakling who couldn't be defeated. This made the members of the Avengers not only distressed, among. Tony, do you have any ideas? Captain Steve asked. You must know that they have been playing for more than 10 minutes under the gaze of the media. But you still haven't successfully solved the super criminal in front of you. What is this rumor? Do they still want the faces of the Avengers? A group fight and you still can't stop a single person. Of course there are ways, but you have to give me some time to accumulate energy. Iron Man Tony pointed to the small reactor on his chest and said, I can release a powerful energy shock wave, which is enough to destroy any obstacle in one blow. Even if Dr. Lizard's self-healing ability is super strong, so what? But I can't withstand this shot. Then let's buy time for Tony. Captain Steve rushed forward again. His figure was so determined, as if he was a fighter fighting for justice. Hawkeye was also equipped with an accelerator. He kept pulling out long arrows from the quiver on his back and shooting continuously. Black Widow jumped repeatedly in the crowd, constantly attracting the hatred of the monsters in front of her. With their full cooperation, Dr. Lizard was also involved. Iron Man stood upright, but an extreme white light emitted from his chest, and the light intertwined and passed through the dazzling long cannon. The charging cannon has been activated. Charging completed. Danger. Dr. Lizard's animal instinct sensed a powerful threat, and he hurriedly tried to struggle. But how could Captain Steve let him go? He held the shield and kept hitting it. Like a tank that is not afraid of death. And Hawkeye also shot the electric arrow. Under the intertwining current, a network of cables was formed, trapping it in it. Then it's up to Tony. Black Widow stood aside. When she glanced at Dr. Lizard, who was locked by electricity, her eyes showed impatience. If the Avengers can defeat this powerful enemy, bound to steal the show at press conferences, it will definitely be followed by the whole network. Don't think that superheroes don't care about their feathers. To a certain extent, they care more about the reviews than ordinary people. Emission. Boom. The terrifying charged cannon was fired with unshakable momentum and landed in front of Dr. Lizard. And just when he showed despair, crash, but he saw the green figure flash past. Blocked in front of the charged cannon. What? Someone dares to stand in front of that charged cannon? Is this guy crazy? The media at the scene witnessed with their own eyes such a powerful killing weapon created by Iron Man. In their view, Dr. Lizard is bound to fail. This is already a certain victory. After all, how can flesh and blood resist that mechanical weapon? But at this critical moment, there is this warrior in armor standing in front of the charged cannon. Even if he wanted to save the lizard man, you can't use your flesh and blood to resist. He must be a fool. The photographers pressed the shutter button and captured this scene. I want to laugh at his overestimation. Aha! Leo pulled out his long knife from his waist, and the scorching flames covered it, like a beating hope. What is the ultimate sword? Wu Si, Wu Nian, Wu Shang, Zhang Zhang Zan. Just when the terrifying charged cannon fell in front of him, Leo's body spurted out terrifying power, as if he was scorched by flames, forming a burning man. Immediately afterwards, the unstoppable sword slashed out. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a 3-meter-long energy sword. Zila. When the sword light collided with the energy cannon, a teeth-searing sound burst out. Everyone was stunned. This man actually blocked this terrifying attack. Isn't this an illusion? Among the reporters, a few couldn't believe it and started rubbing their eyes. This is big news. The photographers were also stunned, and then quickly pressed the shutter button. Capture this cool scene. Let's talk about the most surprising thing. Still members of the Avengers. Is this the weird turtle guy from last time? Captain Steve was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He knew how badly his American butt had been beaten by the Rat Master. Iron Man Tony's face didn't look good either. He was deeply hurt last time. Compared with last time, this turtle man is even more powerful. Black Widow and Hawkeye looked at each other, their eyes showing horror and disbelief. They want to build strength. It takes years and months of hard work. Not like the one in front of me. There is an explosive growth rate. Z-la-la. During this confrontation, it was the rechargeable cannon that couldn't bear it first. First disintegrate inch by inch. In this confrontation, it is the victory of flesh and blood. So amazing. The reporters looked excited, and the photographers were also crazy. Just after Liao Ao appeared, his act of splitting the energy cannon with his knife undoubtedly stole the show, taking away what should have been the highlight moment of the Avengers. Dr. Lizard also broke away from the power grid, stood beside him, and expressed his gratitude. Leo also said to him without hesitation, "This is all arranged by adults. Grown-ups." Although Dr. Lizard did not understand this, when he saw the turtle man in front of him, he instinctively felt a sense of intimacy. "Your Majesty arranged for me to repair and train the Avengers in front of me." Leo raised his long sword, and his body instantly ignited with flames, just like the Fire Fist Agni. Where his long sword points, that is the reunion. Following Li Zan's guidance, The boss of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has grown into a little genius who can stand alone. But even if he can split the energy cannon, it's just a drop in the bucket of reaching Lee Zahn. And this kind of fighting power. Use it to torture the reunion. But it's just right. How dare you underestimate us? Iron Man Tony felt as if his scales had been touched. The demonic arms on his body danced wildly, and then he jumped up and rushed towards there. He was not willing to lose to the Turtle Man in front of him. He is a heroic Iron Man. Jarvis, analyze the target and teach this fool a lesson for me. Tony called his AI for an aid. Since the last defeat, he has upgraded his armor in all aspects. Does he believe that if he encounters Massacre again, he will definitely give that a good beating? But just when Tony was full of confidence, the man in front of him took out a knife. His sharp and swift knife skills were like a strong wind sweeping over him, or like a heavy rainstorm. The only sound that could be heard at the scene was the sound of iron being struck. Dong 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 dong. It's often the last blow that hits the ground. The next blow had already landed. Airtight. Tony could no longer see clearly how the Turtle Man in front of him used his sword, which meant that Jarvis, who was fighting for him mechanically, could barely survive a few moves. Cut, chop, chop. Leo became more and more excited as he fought. After his sword skills were taught by Lee Zahn, he began to gradually overpower the brothers around him. Even Mikey, who was the strongest in physical skills, was chopped to the ground by him. But the man in front of him could barely keep up with his speed by relying on his armor. Happy. This is such a pleasure. The fighting spirit in Leo's eyes almost condensed. He swung his sword faster and faster, as if it was wound up. The more he fought, the faster and stronger he became. It's like the waves carrying a hurricane. But Iron Man's response speed gradually failed to keep up. The mechanical body has its limits. Knife skills did not. Zila. Iron Man revealed a flaw, and the two ghost arms at the chest were chopped off by the sharp blade. Wow. The ghost arm on Iron Man's back was also chopped off. After this battle, this Iron Man Tony only had two of his arms that were not chopped off, and he gradually became frightened. Just 1 second. Wow. The sharp blade fell from the air. He actually cut off a section of Iron Man Tony's forearm. Blood flowed. The arrogant superhero collapsed to the ground and struggled painfully like a maggot. Iron Man Tony was chopped into a cripple. This is big news. The reporters around him were like sharks smelling of blood, eager to run up to Tony and conduct an interview with him. It would be best to know what he is thinking at this moment. It's over. Captain Steve became horrified when he saw this, and under his horrified eyes, Leo suddenly appeared in front of him. Crack. His sharp blade. His face was severely photographed, smashing Captain Steve, who symbolized the spirit of freedom, to the ground. Close your eyes. Passed out. Good guy. This time it's Captain Steve's turn to have a concussion too. The reporters went crazy again. This is going to be bad. Hawkeye and Black Widow looked at each other. They all felt something was wrong. You must know that Captain Steve is already a good hand in close combat. But he was knocked unconscious by that Turtle Man. What if this happened to them? Isn't this a severe concussion? And just when they were terrified, the Turtle Man in front of them retreated to Dr. Lizard and did not attack again. What's going on? These two agents were both confused by Monk Jong-er. When Leo walked to Dr. Lizard, he obviously had something more important. He said, "This group of Avengers heroes confuses right and wrong and slanders you as a super criminal. We can't let him succeed." Dr. Lizard didn't react at first because his brain was confused, but he soon understood. He has to clear up his grievances. Right. In order to record the experimental results, surveillance cameras were installed in his home. It contains a clear record of how he saved the girl Gwen. And now, all you need to do is bring out this piece of evidence. It will definitely make the members of the Avengers walk around without food. Aren't they all self-proclaimed warriors of justice? If they are also indiscriminate, he will definitely be cast aside by the people. Dr. Lizard couldn't help but look forward to it. He was an honest man who only thought about research work. But I never thought that I would be forced to this extent. Is this all caused by that Iron Man? And there are those Avengers members who are adding insult to injury. We can't let them run away. Dr. Lizard raised his head and glanced at the Black Widow and Hawkeye in front of him, making them feel terrified. The comments from the reporters around them brought them back to reality. The Avengers were all defeated by a turtle. Is this still the invincible team we know? Even if they join forces, they can't defeat the Turtle Man. I doubt their professional level. This is already a definite deal. The snobbish reporters were whispering among themselves. Completely forgot. Just a second ago, they are still on the side of the Avengers. But after Iron Man and Captain Steve were defeated, they changed direction again quietly, targeting the Avengers members. What a bunch of losers. Black Widow was extremely angry and felt a little aggrieved for herself. After all, she came here today just to get a piece of the pie. As a female superhero, her image has always been associated with the beautiful female spider. This is not what Natasha Romanoff is pursuing. What she wants is to be treated by others without colored glasses. She wants to be bathed in the heroic style of walking under the lights. But now, things went wrong, and even that little good reputation was ruined. Black Widow cast her gaze at Dr. Lizard, with an expression of gloomy resentment in her eyes. This made Dr. Lizard very angry. This group of robbers, bandits, and sanctimonious hypocrites. After being exhausted, he actually showed an unacceptable expression towards himself, the victim. How dare she? Dr. Connors felt blood rush to his heart. At this moment, another brave reporter shouted through the microphone. As a super criminal, Lizard Man, do you have any thoughts about defeating the Avengers that you can share with us? Super criminal. Dr. Lizard felt like his lungs were about to explode. He obviously did something good, right? Why are you still being accused of doing bad things? Do you have any evidence? Or are you just slandering me? Gwen couldn't stand hearing it anymore, so she stood up and defended Dr. Lizard. According to her description, the members of the Avengers, who symbolize justice, are all evil. And the savage-looking Dr. Lizard turned out to be a good guy. This is big news. It would be better if there was solid evidence. Evidence? I have evidence. Dr. Lizard rushed back to the house without pausing. He carried out the experimental storage video equipment and thoughtfully connected an external power supply. He just glanced at the reporters in front of him and shouted, "Look, this is what you call the master of justice. Which member of the Avengers has done anything good to me?" Click. After that picture is played on the screen, the cyborg symbiote armed with Stark industrial weapons can clearly be seen chasing Gwen. At this critical moment, it was Dr. Lizard who jumped out, fighting the cyborg symbiote. But just when Dr. Lizard had almost established a victory, the Iron Man appeared, and with his arrogant posture, he pronounced the crime of the man in front of him, completely ignoring the fact that he was a hero. If this kind of indiscriminate behavior is allowed, the superheroes may cause some big trouble. Dr. Lizard said sincerely. The words are full of emotion. Made everyone believe it. That means Iron Man Tony is a complete fool. Things are going to happen. When Black Widow saw this, she realized something was wrong. She didn't dare to let the situation continue to deteriorate. The female agent quickly rushed to Captain Steve and punched him twice. Hey. Captain Steve covered his eyes with one hand and woke up again. When he saw that he had become a panda with eyes, he felt extremely unhappy. "Captain, you have to calm down. We only have to rely on you to restore the reputation." Black Widow used those simple words to introduce the current situation and also made it clear what Tony had done wrong. Now everyone knows that he framed Dr. Lizard. If the storm is allowed to spread, don't call him Iron Man by then. Even the name Avengers would stink worse than sewers. Don't let this happen. Steve gritted his teeth, then turned his brows, thinking about it. He let Black Widow help him and walked toward the media not far away. As he walked, his face showed a painful expression. When he walked into the spotlight, he looked deeply at Dr. Lizard. After 3 bows, he said, "Dr. Lizard, we did something wrong this time. The cause of the incident must be blamed on Tony for not figuring out the cause of the incident, so he decided that you were a super criminal. We were also reckless and made you suffer injustice. Here, on behalf of the team, I deeply apologize to you. In the future, we will definitely face such incidents with a more rigorous attitude. I also hope that everyone will give our team a chance to create more and better things for everyone. Good and better service." After Captain Steve finished speaking, he kept bowing to the media. His attitude is so sincere. His behavior was so apologetic. Through this behavior, he wanted to morally kidnap Dr. Lizard in front of reporters. You see, have all the Avengers apologized? Why are you holding on to it? What a poisonous trick. Captain Steve's apology is so sincere. Yes, what's wrong with him? It's just that he believes in Iron Man too much. He is truly a role model for the people. As these media members exchanged words with each other, this made Captain Steve's brows widen. And Black Widow was relieved when she saw this behind the scenes. Does she know how powerful public opinion can be, enough to ruin a person's reputation? Fortunately, the heroic Captain Steve turned the whole situation around. Dr. Lizard frowned. What he wants is more than that, an understatement of apology. Can he be forgiven just because he stood in front of the media and put on a show? Is this forgiveness too cheap? It shouldn't be like this. Dr. Lizard raised his head with a determined look on his face. He looked at the glamorous Captain Steve and said, "Put away your pitiful attitude. If you forget what you did, I will help you remember it." Click. Dr. Lizard clicked on the surveillance video again. But this time the picture above became a still picture. Those voices came out. With Dr. Lizard's weak defense. There is the arrogant Tony's indiscriminate and thick slander. There is the cry of Girl Gwen. And Captain Steve's righteous and awe-inspiring slap on the hat. And the cynicism of Black Widow and Hawkeye. After listening to these audios, Captain Steve's expression has changed. If there is no video and audio stone hammer, he is also sure to reduce the negative impact caused by the Avengers. But this stone hammer, how can he quibble like this? Really, as this video played, those reporters who had forgiven the Avengers turned their backs one after another. They praised and pitied Dr. Lizard. I didn't expect Captain Steve to be so good at telling lies with his eyes open. Is this what their team calls injustice? You can't do anything. Confusing right and wrong. If you can't even do this well, how can you talk about contributing to the citizens of New York City? Is this still the superhero team we know? The reporters talked non-stop. Dr. Lizard was even more impressive in his acting skills. With tears in his eyes, he walked up to the girl Gwen and cried. Even if she is a member of the Avengers, it doesn't matter how much she slanders me, but she is still a child. Is she still a flower in bud? She is obviously right, but she is slandered by the pseudo-just Avengers. She should not be treated unfairly. Can't agree. Can't let it go. Must be severely punished. Dr. Lizard clenched his fist and stood in the crowd, waving it constantly. At this moment, his strong body turned into a solid shield. He seems to be the backbone of people's hearts. This is exactly what Captain Steve does. That is to use public opinion to carry out dimensionality reduction attacks. Aren't you awesome? Aren't you very good at moral kidnapping? What do you do now? Under this noisy din, the Iron Man who fell to the ground also gradually woke up. He regained his senses in the severe pain and said doubtfully, "Me? What's wrong with us?" Captain Steve's face was as dark as water. He looked at his companions beside him and said, "We were defeated by the Lizard Man." Defeated by that supervillain Lizard Man? That doesn't make sense. Iron Man Tony screamed, "He is a genius inventor, how could he be slapped in the face?" And the blood on his forearm was still pouring out. Do you still have a tough mouth when you look like this? Look more clearly. Captain Steve pointed at the media reporters and shouted, "We have become street rats, and he will become the new hero." Crash. It was like responding to his conversation. The sturdy Dr. Lizard walked up to these superheroes under the cheers of the people, before he could say anything more. Several excited reporters had already picked up their microphones and smashed them at them. The Avengers are a nest of snakes and rats. Avengers apologize. Iron Man Tony was so angry that he couldn't speak. He looked at his broken arm. Was it still dripping with blood? He is the victim. And how could this super criminal with super self-healing ability make a comeback? We were wrong. Captain Steve bent his proud head and bowed again to the Dr. Lizard he had beaten. He became more and more proficient in mastering this skill. But Dr. Lizard said, "You still have to apologize to that little girl." Wow, let Captain America apologize to me. Gwen felt dizzy and had a strange, refreshing feeling in her heart. The next second, Captain Steve actually bent down to apologize. This is a victory for the people. Clang. Just inside S.H.I.E.L.D. When the heroic director Nick saw the increasingly serious news, his eyes darkened and he almost lost his breath. You know, he just wiped the butt of everyone in the Alliance. Now he has fallen into the cesspit again. Frustrated. Uncomfortable. Have no choice. Director Nick covered his bald forehead, and his eyes showed the meaning of, I can't carry you anymore, and, you can do it, you go. He is so difficult. He obviously just wants to form a powerful Avengers team. Why should he suffer so much criticism? That is when he was gritting his teeth. The bald Agent Coulson walked in from the door. Director, we may have discovered the gods in Norse mythology. He said somewhat solemnly. In his description, it was related to an experience that May Agent had. In the wilderness of that New Mexico town, a hammer fell from the sky that could not be lifted no matter what. Originally, they were planning to conduct research on the spot. But I found a strong man trying to break into the camp. This was brought under control by them. And after using the truth serum, they learned from the big man's mouth. He is a god from Asgard. And his name is actually Thor. Also has the same name as Thor. Good guy. Isn't this an unexpected surprise? Thor. After hearing this, Director Ludin pondered. He had an encounter with Captain Marvel, the gangster from Universe Street. I also know that in this vast world, there are many things beyond ordinary people's understanding. This is commonplace. Just don't admit your mistake. Then Director Nick reiterated it again. Are you sure that strong man is not a liar? Agent Coulson said excitedly. Definitely not. We analyzed the cells extracted from him, and he is exceptionally strong. It's just that he was restricted by some kind of power. According to Saul, he was deprived of his divine power by his father. But even so, his cells still have strong potential. Quote. Then we have to entertain and entertain. Director Lou Dan said meaningfully. Now that Thor is here, we can't let him leave so easily. No matter what, I have to scrape off 2 ounces of oil. We have arranged a professional model team to entertain. They are professionals, Coulson said excitedly, and also told from a scientific perspective that Thor's genes are very powerful, which will greatly promote artificial breeding, fertilization, etc. Good guy. In Saul's opinion, it was just a casual romance. But now, it seems like S.H.I.E.L.D. is trying to cultivate the son of Thor. If God King Odin knew about this, he must have been so angry that he bled on the spot. What an evil snake S.H.I.E.L.D. Talk about both ends. When the members of the Avengers were so angry that they had brain congestion, Dr. Lizard successfully reversed the criticism and was rated as the superhero Green Dragon by the media. Naturally, he did not forget the Ninja Turtle Leo who helped him. Under his warm invitation, he also came to Lizon's house. In the camp. Along the way, Dr. Lizard was dazzled. He saw the busy Shadow Corps. He saw Dr. Octopus, who he had worked with. He saw Carnage practicing hard and his fellow Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He also saw the existence that looked like a divine residence. The golden tree stands between heaven and earth, as if it is a sacred tree that grew from eternity. From it, you can feel the magnificence, solemnity, and shameful feeling. Lizon, standing under the tree, is the only king here. This is Lord Lizon. Dr. Octopus stepped forward and took the initiative to entertain his old colleague. You must know that when we worked together at the Osborne Group, they are all working on the group's projects. They all try their best to come up with plans, write implementation plans, and conduct analysis and research for their own funds. Now Dr. Octopus has become famous. But he turned into a monster. Dr. Lizard sighed for a while, lamenting that the world has changed and everyone's situation is different. After Dr. Octopus heard this, he felt happy. He was afraid that his old colleagues in front of him would be hit by life and lose the courage to pursue their ideals. Looking at it now, he still has a fire hidden in his heart. It's just starting over. Dr. Octopus began to encourage him. Under his words, that little-known experience is narrated. It turns out that Dr. Otto was also on the verge of failure. If Lizon hadn't arranged the massacre and help, he was almost killed by Iron Man. But when Carnage came, he not only slapped Iron Man Tony hard in the face, but also made him blind. He also developed a nuclear reactor that was once technologically monopolized by Stark Industries. The affordable electricity plan he is now presiding over was also launched with the help of Lizon. And before long, all poor people will be able to use energy with confidence. This is how invented technology changes the future. This is what our generation should do. It's so thrilling. Dr. Lizard was a little excited after hearing this. He also wants to successfully spread his research to the world. Although the limb regeneration technology he is studying is only one step away from success. Just give him some more time to figure it out. But who would trust a mutated lizard man? Who would put a lizard man in charge? Dr. Lizard, Dr. Connors, choked up. But the godlike man standing under the sacred tree spoke. He said to Dr. Lizard, "I'm very optimistic about you, Dr. Connors. I'm willing to fund your research on self-healing technology. You believe me?" Dr. Connors burst into tears when he heard this. He is really a good old man. Even if you become a lizard man. I didn't even think about conquering the world. Even if he is slandered by members of the Avengers. Nor blacken. Nor did he kill innocent people indiscriminately. What a powerful ability to control yourself. And when he heard that the technology he was researching had hope of starting again. The green animal eyes burst out with an amazing light. This is the light of hope. This is the light of thirst for knowledge. Dr. Lizard kept bowing to Lizon to express his gratitude. If the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles he sent earlier saved his life, now they have saved his career and his soul. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing Dr. Lizard's blood and tears and starting to calculate rewards. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Umbrella's ancestral virus research and development data. Ding! Dr. Otto is detected and you are surprised and happy. This reward will be doubled as a critical hit. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the fairy sword, Wood Spirit Pearl. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the fairy sword, Thunder Spirit Pearl. Dr. Lizard was in tears of gratitude before. Now it was Lizon's turn to be a little unable to sit still. What about Umbrella's research and development information on the progenitor virus? It can only be regarded as a gimmick. What you get next is the real good stuff. After all, Lizon already has the blood of the sacred tree in his body, as well as the power of the lightning fruit. The wood spirit beads and thunder spirit beads obtained this time fit perfectly with the power in his body. In the end, the effect of 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. In addition, these spiritual beads in the world of fairy swords were made by Empress Nua using the essence of the 5 gods of wind, thunder, water and volcanoes. They represent the strongest power in the world. Once obtained, they can greatly enhance the power of the 5 elements of magic. This once the buffs are superimposed, wouldn't it be like killing people indiscriminately? Even though the Nua Empress in that small world is just a low-profile version of Pin Shishi. But for a young man like Lizon who has just embarked on the extraordinary journey, it simply doesn't complement each other too well. What? You said you have an opinion about the 5 spirit pearls. Have you ever asked Lady Nua if she has a fist as big as a sandbag? I'll beat you down in minutes. Dr. Connors, I have a piece of information here, you can go and study it. Lizon quickly took out the Umbrella Company, ancestral virus R&D materials rewarded by the system. In that zombie world, Umbrella is the source of all evil. The T-virus they developed led to the extinction of more than 99% of the world's humans, leading to the vast white land. Only a few are left to survive. There are so many bloodthirsty monsters. But this does not mean that the virus developed by the Umbrella Company is unforgivable, dross, and garbage. Quite the opposite. The original ancestor virus was extracted from a flower called Ladder of the Sun, that grew in the ruins of the Dabai tribe in West Africa. This flower contains a viral substance in the form of RNA, which can improve the human body's ability and extend human lifespan. However, complementary to these functions is that this substance has highly toxic properties, and few people can withstand this toxic properties and eventually lead to death. What does this mean? Does this mean that the human body of flesh and blood is too weak? So even if the ancestral virus wants to make you super god, make you show off, and make you immortal, this can't be carried away either. The scientists of Umbrella Corporation, the Umbrella Company, have been replaced several times, and under the main line of the ancestor virus, they have blossomed everywhere and developed branch viruses one after another. Dr. Marcus used the integration experiment of the progenitor virus and the leech gene to develop a T-virus that can make weapons. Although most of the experimental products will suffer from strong side effects, part of the cerebral cortex will be necrotic and intelligence will be severely reduced under the direct influence of the virus. But there are a few people who can resist, and the Tyrant series is based on this. As for Dr. Williams' research results on the T virus, he continued to devote himself to scientific research and developed the G virus. The organisms infected by it will change their own body in a step-by-step manner just like those infected by the T virus. Although its appearance is more terrifying than the T virus, it will produce uncontrollable mutations and can evolve into a god, far beyond ordinary people, or it may degenerate into a demon that loses its mind. There are also subsequent T Veronica viruses, Las Plagas 2 parasites, Las Plagas 3 parasites, Ouroboros viruses, C viruses, etc., which are all different branches. If the ancestor virus is the raw material, they are just plates of processed dishes. Let's see how Dr. Lizard operates. After he took the information, he took a brief glance and was completely shocked by the scientific research results from another world. Dr. Connors had never imagined that something so fascinating and extremely dangerous existed in this world. It's so scary. Too scary. That's awesome. He couldn't help but tremble, and he flinched a little, wanting to return this thing to the godlike man in front of him. But when Dr. Connors raised his head and touched his eyes, but he felt a little ashamed of himself. He is like an animal crawling in the dirt. The man in front of him has essentially surpassed them and become a magical creature soaring in the sky. Liaison comforted Dr. Lizard in front of him and said, I just hope that this research information will be helpful to you in developing self-healing technology. I don't mean to do anything illegal. Dr. Lizard breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. He didn't want to develop such a thing that could destroy human beings, but what if we only talk about the benefits of evolution? Master Liaison's information was very helpful to him. He just studies self-healing ability. And what is recorded here is how to make human beings evolve. Take the most initialized ancestor virus of integrate. For ordinary people, it is a chance event. If the integrate is not good, they will die. But for the strong, as long as the host's genes are strong enough, they can be immune. Those negative effects completed tens of millions of years of evolution in a short period of time. There is such a good thing. After Dr. Octopus heard the conversation between the two, he couldn't help but come closer. After a rough glance, he was also shocked. He even patted his colleague on the shoulder and said, It's so precious. You have to repay me well. Quote, It's our duty to do so. The look in Dr. Lizard's eyes showed that, a man who knows his friends will die. Who says those who oppose superheroes belong to supercriminals? Obviously Dr. Lizard is the real good guy. How does he look like Iron Man Tony? He is an arrogant person. When was the dilemma he faced not caused by himself? The life-saving Illuminati recorded in the anime is under the leadership of Iron Man Tony, gathering Mr. Fantastic, Black Panther, Doctor Strange and others to engage in major events that threaten the multi-universe and destroy mankind. Soon, Dr. Lizard, who had an idea, was taken to the laboratory by Dr. Octopus. The two of them will conduct research for this brand new project. As for Liaison, who was sitting under the sacred tree, he took out a wood spirit bead from the system. Wow, but the beads with light cyan luster just appeared. Let the vegetation within a radius of dozens of miles be affected. As if being stimulated by something. It started growing like crazy. It is indeed a wood-type spiritual treasure. The divine tree bloodline in Liaison's body was also stimulated by this power, and the desire to devour the bead arose from this. This is a desire that comes from a genetic level. It's like swallowing this bead. Can it make up for deficiencies in certain aspects of the body? Liaison quickly swallowed the wood spirit bead, and as the majestic energy vented from the bead and merged into his flesh and blood, he also felt the benign mutation in his body. After all, in the world of Naruto, this sacred tree is the source of extraordinary power. Liaison has the blood of the sacred tree in his body. But the purity is not very high. And as the power of the wood spirit bead gradually integrated into the bloodline of the sacred tree, he felt that the bloodline of the sacred tree began to be continuously purified and increased. It was as if a switch had been turned on. In a short period of time, this accumulation that should have taken decades, or even hundreds of years, was completed. This power, the power of the mother tree, it's actually glowing with such vitality. Even though the 9 llamas were locked in the space, they were shocked by the movement. He never expected that he would experience the nurturing process of the mother tree again. Is that man Li Zan a god? Chapter 71. Li Zan's body changed greatly when he absorbed the powerful power contained in the wood spirit bead. The bloodline of the divine tree should have been in a long period of growth. Shorten. It was reduced to a matter of hours. Crash. The shade of the tree, which looked like a golden tree, was swaying, and the man under the tree had his face coated with gold powder, his body was like glass, and his whole body exuded a metallic luster. Is this an amazing change? If we say in the past, what if Li Zan just looks like a god? Now he already possesses the physique and majesty of that god. He has transcended the shackles of flesh and blood. With the resurrection of the blood of the sacred tree, he naturally possesses the status of a god. Zitza. And above the treetops, there are streaks of thunder circulating, just like those little white worms. This is the power of the lightning fruit. Call. Li Zan let out a breath and felt the power in his body grow from the great river to the immeasurable sea area. You must know that his original strength is no longer weak. Now maybe I can arm wrestle with some gods. But he can still keep getting stronger. Strike while the iron is hot. The man quickly swallowed the thunder spirit bead into his belly again. Crash. This time, the momentum became even greater. Notice thunder. But the natural punishment in nature is particularly deterrent. And just today, dark clouds are pressing down. The countless rays of thunder power gathered together and slashed towards the man, as if they were welcoming the new king's ascension to the throne. In a dark studio, didn't turn on the light. The strong smell of alcohol is particularly pungent. In that laboratory, Playboy Tony was in distress. He was wearing a dirty work jacket and leaning on a chair. He was no longer as high-spirited as before. Like a castrated male puppy. Since he was born, he has never suffered a particularly serious blow. The most powerful one was when your parents were killed by Captain Steve's good friend Bucky. But this is also in terms of life. If we look at it purely from a career perspective, even Dr. Doom, who once went to college with Iron Man Tony, didn't hit him. But now, after he became the superhero Iron Man, especially after eliminating the Butcher Shield, his good luck seemed to have run out. Not only was he scorned by people, but he also became disabled. He should be admired by everyone, right? He should have a brighter future. How come it was ruined? Tony was drinking strong wine, and the scarred white tank armor beside him was repaired by the symbiote, almost like a living thing. As for the semi-mechanical symbiote that was previously imprisoned by Tony, it was not destroyed by him. Instead, it was imprisoned in a protective tank made of high-strength glass. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this. Tony pressed the button in front of the can. Zzzz. Thousands of degrees of high-voltage electricity passed through and tortured the prisoner. As the creator, Tony does have the power to deal with the cyborg symbiote in front of him. Who makes it seem to him? Is this a guinea pig-like character? He can express his anger at will. Ah, the semi-mechanical symbiote screamed, feeling resentful under the abuse. You must know that he is also an intelligent creature. He also wants to have his own rights. He didn't want to go through the pain of being incarcerated. Although this man created himself. But so what? Why should he feel these irreparable pains? Why? The resentment in the heart of this semi-mechanical symbiote accumulated more and more, and at the cellular level, he also began to undergo benign mutations. He became able to adapt to high-voltage electricity. All this happens in silence. Even Iron Man Tony didn't notice it, but instead increased the current. He has become a disabled person. Why can't he find a place to vent? Tony lowered his head. When he glanced at the empty sleeves, his eyes showed loneliness, jealousy and madness. Although he has several ways to recreate the robotic arm. But after all, these are still not as good as the original ones. Is he such a proud man? But I have to endure the pain of this physical disability. Do. Just as he was pondering, Jarvis broadcast reports. Captain Steve called. Tony's expression didn't change at all after hearing this, and he even took a big sip of wine into his mouth before saying, refused to answer. Director Nick, you can see the current situation. Tony is really not suitable for going out to preach and report on work. When Captain Steve raised the rejected phone, When the braised egghead sitting in front of him heard this, his face was as dark as water. Did he know that after the video of Iron Man framed Dr. Lizard was exposed, not only Tony, but also the members of the Avengers became everyone's shouting beat up a street rat? Even if Captain Steve was once a hero protecting peace, still undisguised, the eyes of the masses are sharp. And what the Avengers and the others have been doing recently is so unlike what superheroes should do. If he doesn't want to go, then don't go. As a billionaire, he has many ways. We can just go. Nick Fury stood up, and under his leadership, allowing the members of the Avengers to reduce the frequency of missions. Running back and forth, efforts were made for the government's charitable undertakings. What can be done to reverse the criticism? Only do good deeds. Only Duo holds a press conference. With their full cooperation, this group of superheroes are becoming more and more like seasoned politicians. In media exposure, they were busy without touching the ground, but they still only managed to save 1/3 of their reputation. This is the result of director Nick racking his brains and teaming up with a group of agents to clean up the land. After all, after a house collapses, it is not easy to build a tall building on top of the ruins. Next, I really look forward to a big case coming up. Director Nick behind the stage spoke softly, with a look of longing in his eyes. Captain Steve, who was just in front of the stage, also held up a star shield and loudly read out the declaration of light. He's in the spotlight, so magnificent, and just. It's like whitewashed idealism. We will surely move towards a happy future, Captain Steve declared loudly. Next to him, Black Widow, Hawkeye and Dr. Banner also helped to speak. Poor Dr. Banner wanted to do experiments in the laboratory. He was also captured as a young man. Crash. While the people in the audience were singing praises for the Avengers, on the horizon, there were streaks of thunder mixed with golden flowers blooming. It's like midsummer. What is this? There is actually a scene of thunder and golden flowers accompanying each other. Captain Steve's eyes widened, staring at the scene above the sky, falling into panic. Although he is a super soldier, it's only a little stronger than ordinary people. There is no crushing in knowledge. Just those streaks of thunder and lightning that look like silver dragons. But why do those golden flowers bloom in the sky? Could it be another super-villain thing? Captain Steve turned to look at his team members, as if he wanted to ask for proof. I've never seen anything like this. Eagle Eye was stunned. When he looked far into the distance, he could still see the intertwining thunder and lightning, like a group of dragons dancing wildly. This was never a natural occurrence. Dr. Banner made the final decision. He said to everyone, I have never seen such a strange thunderstorm. Those strange flowers, it seems like it was man-made. After Captain Steve heard these words, he frowned first, and then relaxed. He raised the shield in his hand. He walked up to the reporters. He shouted, journalists and friends, look at the magnificent scenery above the island of Manhattan. I'm sure there are supernatural forces at work in it. As the Avengers defending the people, we will go there and discover the truth. Crash. Captain Steve just finished speaking. All the reporters in the audience clapped happily. OMG. The man in front of me is really a lucky star. I dislike the fact that the news I just preached was not big enough. Instead, he added fuel to the fire. I found a reason to have an adventure. This is much more exciting than standing and talking slogans in the past. What's going on? Director Nick, who was behind the station, heard his speech and hurriedly ran outside. When he raised his telescope and looked at the sky, he not only saw streaks of thunder sweeping across the sky, but also saw the under that thunder, that looming sacred tree. That golden old tree. It's like coming out of myths and legends. Like the tree of life. The more beautiful things are, the more dangerous it is. Will there be immeasurable danger hidden behind it? Based on his many years of experience as an agent, Nick can be sure that it was a powerful mutant who was causing trouble at the end. Maybe it has something to do with Professor Charles from College X. Or is it related to Magneto of the Brotherhood of Mutants? That would be troublesome. How unwise is Captain Steve? He doesn't just represent himself. If they lose face when facing a powerful enemy, will the reputation of the Avengers still be lost? Why doesn't he discuss it with himself? Just when the braised egghead's face darkened and he was in a bad mood, Captain Steve had already walked up to him with the team members in high spirits and said, This will be a great opportunity to turn around the Avengers' reputation. But if we don't handle it well, the Avengers will be embarrassed. Director Nick said with a gloomy face. I'll take care of it all. Captain Steve was confident. I hope so. Director Nick snorted coldly. You'd better be able to handle this matter, otherwise, don't blame me. Although he didn't finish the second half of the sentence. But all the members of the Avengers know. The director is blaming Captain Steve for his reckless behavior. The man smiled indifferently and turned his attention to Dr. Banner. Does Captain Steve know how powerful this man will be after his transformation? So what if some mutants jump out and cause trouble? Hulk is not a vegetarian either. Dr. Banner is really hard to find. If he hadn't falsely conveyed Director Nick's order, wouldn't he be able to trick him out of the laboratory? But as long as he comes to the scene, that's a sure thing. Gather and set off. Captain Steve tightened the S.H.I.E.L.D. lock and made sure it was tied to his arm, then shouted to the team members. Dr. Banner walked at the end of the team, his face a little panicked. Too bad. If before Hulk was sealed, he is not at all shy about fighting. But now, he just wants to be a scientific researcher and clock in from 9 to 5. Instead of being a combat preparer, going into battle to kill the enemy. This major doesn't fit the bill. How to play. But Dr. Banner, a mute man, couldn't speak out when he ate coptis chinensis, so he could only endure it silently. You can't refuse Captain Steve in front of you, right? And in his mind, the S.H.I.E.L.D. escape plan, which was already taking shape, was also rapidly being perfected. We can't stay in this place any longer. Hello everyone, I'm your good friend April. I am honored to bring you a piece of news today. Just above the Manhattan Island, a huge golden tree appeared. The thunder struck down, as if it was surrounded by believers, decorating it as if it had stepped out of a myth. This is a miracle, this is a legend, this is a magnificent epic. But according to the news I got, those hypocritical Avengers members will go there to explore. I can guarantee that they will fail. April, the female host, stood in front of the camera and expressed her views without any concealment. In her opinion, the members of the Avengers are just sanctimonious hypocrites. Since the last time I got slapped in the face with the help of those Ninja Turtles. She has become a leading figure in the news media. She became the leader of the new generation. That's why. She inherited the fighting skills and even developed them. Thanks to New York City being a city of free speech. In addition, there is a hello from the Milcom Industrial Group. That's why she dared to hold the flag high and go against the Avengers. If not, Director Nick had already sent an agent to give a warning the next day. Ordinary people want to fight against that huge agent organization. It's not easy, but I will fight until the end. April said sonorously, and when the photographer behind him raised the camera and pointed it at the thunderstorm not far away, the superheroes in uniforms were emerging from the small jumping off the fighter plane. In order, they are Captain Na-Shi-Aman, Black Widow, Hawkeye and Dr. Banner. They're about to run into a thunderstorm. Meet that terrifying god. Hulala. The wind howled, thunder and lightning. The sky and the earth are intertwined into a light gray color, so hazy that it is almost impossible to see the front. At this time, the strong wind, dust, and roaring thunder were intertwined. Captain Steve came from a distance, as if a still person suddenly broke out of the raging wind and sand. He stood there, making people sigh like a Dinghai Shenzhen, with a face full of righteousness. And behind him were also some, just, partners. They were well equipped and enthusiastic, running towards the giant golden tree that stood between heaven and earth. Something, even if it's just a first glance. It will make people feel that it is different. God, tree, the tree of life. Captain Steve and Dr. Banner came out of their mouths with two very different words, but full of solemn words, and then looked at each other. Everyone seemed to agree with what the other party said. And at this moment, the eagle eye holding the bow and arrow had a frozen look on his face, and ran towards him before he had time to explain. Chase. Although Captain Steve didn't know what his companions had discovered, he still ran quickly and followed closely. The Black Widow is indeed the most thoughtful poisonous widow. She took good care of the doctor's physical strength, took his hand, and dragged Banner towards the depths. Dr. Banner forced a smile. Actually, I don't need help. But the words hadn't even waited for him to say it. Dr. Banner ate a mouthful of ashes. I could only shut my mouth obediently. Wow, the wind and sand blow against my face. I don't know how long it took. The Black Widow stopped in front of her. There was a frightened expression on this woman's face, and when she looked forward along her line of sight, what caught his eye was a figure. In that strong wind, there was thunder and lightning. In the most violent place. But there was a red figure sitting cross-legged. He did not notice the danger approaching, but was contemplating. Behind that figure, looking into the distance, the golden old tree stands in the sky. It seems there is still some distance. Daredevil. The name popped out of Hawkeye's mouth angrily. He could never forget this superhero who slipped away from his hands. As a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., he doesn't look down upon this kind of superheroes who don't have documents and still want to punish evil and promote good. As a superhero who climbed up from the bottom and was finally whitewashed, he knows the hardships at the bottom, but he doesn't think their violent law enforcement can bring any justice. Only order can achieve justice. Only the order of S.H.I.E.L.D. can achieve justice. Aha! Hawkeye took out an arrow from the sheath behind him and quickly put it on the bow. He wanted to make up for the prey he let go. The world's top shooter Hawkeye doesn't allow mistakes. Wait a minute. Black Widow stopped him with words. Hawkeye's face looked a little unhappy, and he said, "Which super criminal do you want to let go of, that we have offended?" Daredevil is certainly not a super criminal. But after he was injured by Black Widow and Hawkeye, he became an enemy of the Avengers. Show mercy to the enemy. This doesn't seem like Black Widow's style, does it? I mean, the Black Widow's face showed the smile of the female spider who found her prey, and she said, "Are you sure this arrow is safe?" Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. After hearing this, Eagle Eye silently put the ordinary long arrow into his quiver. Or he didn't think enough about it. The woman in front of her then added, "To cut the grass, you have to get rid of the roots." Clear. Hawkeye took out the special long arrow from the scabbard, and as he bent down to pick up the bowstring, he stared at the man in red like a falcon targeting its prey. Daredevil, farewell. Aha! The long arrow with great momentum shot through the air. There was even a slight crackling sound. And in the process of rapid advancement, the end of the arrow cracked open, and the concentrated high explosive came into contact with the air and started a wonderful chemical reaction. Zzzz. Thick white smoke came out. Just when the smoke and dust almost enveloped Daredevil, flames mixed with terrifying explosions sounded. "It looks like he will definitely die," Captain Steve said confidently. In his view, just human beings of flesh and blood, still unable to withstand this kind of explosion. He's not a superhero, neither can Daredevil. It's a sure thing that it won't work. Dr. Banner looked a little surprised. Did he know how agile those superheroes were? Although he didn't know why this one didn't stop him, it didn't seem like he wanted to die. There must be something fishy about this matter. Crash. The sound of the wind became more rapid, where the arrow exploded. But there were no traces of flesh and blood. On the contrary, empty. When Hawkeye scanned this scene, he couldn't believe his eyes. He whispered, "It doesn't make sense." And the next second, just 40 meters away from the explosion, but a red figure appeared quietly. Daredevil is still wearing a blindfold, but his hands are wrapped with bandages, just like a monk in traditional martial arts. His fists were clenched tightly. His transcendent perception has locked onto the enemy in front of him. Black Widow, Hawkeye, you sanctimonious fake hero, we will make you pay the price. His right leg slowly lifted up, like a sharp razor, pointing at his prey. And the next moment, the faint yellow energy fluctuations emitted from it, carrying as much weight as the earth. It is the energy of Earth attribute. I'll pay it back. Daredevil carried the fierce Earth energy and rushed towards the Avengers members in front of him. Because of the positioning problem, Captain Steve was attacked head-on. Clang. Even though he raised his shield at the critical moment, he still couldn't block it and was kicked out hard. Ahem. Captain Steve wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth, his face full of fear, as if he had been hit by a high-speed train. How is it possible? How could this flesh and blood body explode with such powerful power? His face was filled with horror. He erupted into a prairie dog-like scream. Captain Steve was in trouble. Hawkeye looked gloomy. Does he know how cruelly he and Black Widow attacked Daredevil? Whose fault is it that started this incident? But as long as the contradiction is established, then there is no possibility of a proper solution between the two parties. Hawkeye will never bow to fellow human superheroes. He is an archer who is so arrogant that he has low self-esteem. The only thing he believes in is the long arrow in his hand. He has sacrificed so much to become the best marksman. He would never allow himself to bow his head. Aha! Hawkeye stretched out his hand and put on the long bow. As he stared ahead, what caught his eyes were the silhouettes of legs mixed with the strong wind blowing against his face. Archery, archery. In the blink of an eye, Hawkeye had already shot no less than 10 arrows, but the rapidly advancing long arrow exploded at the same time after approaching the target. As if there was a sign. And amid the flames and explosions, the flying kick was coming. Hawkeye just felt like he was hit by a bus, and he was knocked out hard. Whoops! Hawkeye felt severe pain in his chest, and blood surged into his throat, but before he could spit it out, he was stepped on by the cowhide boots on his face. Humiliation, resentment, unwilling to do so. The intense emotions enveloped the marksman. But he was powerless to fight it all. The eagle's eyes almost bulged out, like an adult with dead fish eyes. It's a pity that he is only a marginal character in the Avengers. Even if he wanted to explode, he didn't rely on it. Daredevil, on the other hand, is enjoying the fruits of his revenge. Does he know how much these two agents went when they first met? Because he attacked a few gangsters too harshly, he was deemed a lawless element and was almost beaten to death by Hawkeye and Black Widow. When I was most helpless, why didn't poor justice come to my door? Because violence creates justice, not enough strength. It cannot promote justice. Daredevil clasped his hands together and silently thanked Lord Liaison. He was simply a living parent who not only healed his body, but also healed his mind. It gave him extraordinary strength and allowed him to embark on his own path of punishment. Bang! Daredevil is at home again. When his leather boots severely trampled on Hawkeye's dignity. Even when his aloof attitude was stepped into the dirt. Tap tap tap. Black Widow couldn't sit still. She first asked Dr. Banner for help in a pleading tone, "Help us quickly." But, how dare Dr. Banner guarantee this? He could only say tactfully, "I'll try my best, but I still can't control the monster in my body well." After he was sealed by Liaison, Dr. Banner has long since become a normal person. Where will it be as Avengers guest? You can also transform into the angry God Hulk. Plus, the girl in front of me is not a good person, right? Dr. Banner had already gotten some clues from their conversation. After all, every one of these Avengers members are pseudo-heroes. Megalomaniac Tony, Two-Faced Captain Steve, the Poison Widow Natasha Romanoff. There is also Hawkeye, who has low self-esteem and pride. Everyone is crazy. Originally, with the addition of Rage, who can transform into the Hulk, it was a perfect match. But who allowed the good man Liaison to give Dr. Banner a chance to return to normal? He sealed the Hulk. It was he who allowed Dr. Banner to remain undisturbed by anger. It was he who gave Dr. Banner the opportunity to hug General Ross's daughter. Tap tap tap. As Hawkeye's dignity was ruthlessly trampled on, and when he felt like he was being buried in the soil, Daredevil stepped on him hard again, crushing the knuckles of his right hand. Ah! Hawkeye screamed feebly and painfully. Just when his eyes were about to shed tears of blood, Daredevil said with a smile, "Enjoy this, you may never be able to hold a bow and arrow again." Is this even more painful than killing Marksman and Hawkeye? This is an authentic killing, but also heartbreaking. Black Widow caught a glimpse of this scene not far away, and her heart went crazy. She really couldn't imagine how she would be retaliated against if it was her turn. Will he destroy his own beauty? Just when Black Widow's face was cloudy and uncertain, Hawkeye rolled his eyes and completely fainted. Daredevil smiled charmingly, turned around and walked towards the poisonous widow. He was very fast and arrived in front of Natasha Romanoff almost in the blink of an eye. "Maybe we can talk." Black Widow waved her hands, frantically gesturing to Dr. Banner not far away to seize the time to transform. But, even though Dr. Banner's face was red from holding back, he was still in human form. Sure enough, stinky men can't be trusted. Zila. The Daredevil had clenched his fist, and the cold wind of the fist gathered on it, dyeing it deep yellow. Was it a deliberate punch? When Black Widow saw this, her expression changed drastically. She knew that even if she showed off her man-killing look, she couldn't subdue the man in front of her. There is no way. Crash. Black Widow took off a soft whip from her waist and said, "Then let's fight." As the strongest agent cultivated from the Red House, she was an elite selected among thousands of people. She is able to skillfully complete the mission of intrusion and stealing secrets. She is Director Nick's most trusted female agent. She got punched hard. Bang. Black Widow felt like she was being shoveled away by a forklift. She flew into the air and fell heavily to the ground. She rolled her eyes and fainted. So weak. Don't blame her for being weak. After all, Daredevil has long been the elite among the elite. He obtained the way to practice extraordinary ability given by Liaison. And after a lot of hard work. Don't say it's them. So what if it's Iron Man who can combine man and machine? Daredevil can still beat him. His self-confidence has almost exploded. It was at this moment. Dr. Banner, who was not far away, closed his eyes in despair. He muttered, "Come on. Give me a good time. You don't have any hatred against me." Daredevil shook his head with clear grudge, and asked, "Or give me a reason to beat you." Ah ha ha. Dr. Banner didn't expect that the man in front of him could be so reasonable. For a while, he couldn't tell who was the superhero. But he quickly thought again. If the rest of the Avengers were knocked unconscious? And what if he wasn't beaten? Wouldn't it be possible for someone to say sarcastic remarks? "You'd better beat me." Dr. Banner pondered for a long time, but still chose to accept the beating from society. To be honest, Daredevil has never encountered such a weird thing in his life. Then try your best to be satisfied. He punched out, causing Dr. Banner, an honest man, to faint with a smile. We can see that the thunderstorm is gradually shrinking. And the brilliance of the golden tree seems to be more and more dazzling. It's like the resurrection of a god. April was on hand to report on what was happening. The bright rays of light and the golden sacred tree complement each other. The composition creates beautiful pictures. And while she was talking enthusiastically, sudden mutation, just in the distance of the camera, how many people are lying in a mess. This is, although April had a guess in her mind, she was not sure, so she sped up and trotted away. As the lens kept bumping, as the camera kept zooming in, the expression on the female reporter's face gradually became smiling. What did she see? She actually saw members of the Avengers. April shouted to the camera. "I guessed it right, those shameless superheroes, they didn't achieve their goals smoothly, they all failed." As she dances, the camera kept following her guidance. Take the people on the ground into the mirror. First, he looked at Captain Steve, who was as straight as a dead fish and fell to the ground. His breathing was very steady, but his arm was broken and twisted weirdly, showing an overwhelmed posture. Closely behind him, it's those eagle eyes that have no sight. You know, in the past, this shooter always wore sunglasses and showed that cold look. But what now? The eagle's eyes were staring blankly at the sky. Under his gaze, he was still muttering, "I am invincible." Marksman. Even at this moment, is this Hawkeye still unwilling to face the cruel reality? He lost. He lost to a blind man. He was a complete failure. But he also locked himself in that fantasy, and barely maintained his high profile. As for the Black Widow, she looked even more unbearable. She was punched so hard by Daredevil that her eyes almost popped out. Next to this girl, there were balls of vomit. She was obviously nauseated. Limit. If not, will this poisonous widow maintain that elegant posture instead of like now? Like a madwoman who escaped from a madhouse. As for this friend who looked a little strange, he slept soundly. April muttered, and under her direct gaze, Dr. Banner lying on the ground looked very peaceful. Is this human Banner a good person? Even though he has a bad temper, he would still carry out forced demolitions from time to time. But who allowed Dr. Banner to have the help of the good man Liaison? He will be the luckiest man among the Avengers. He will have a chance to escape from that den of thieves. Hutchie, Hutchie. In Dr. Banner's dream, he almost met his girlfriend. It's so exciting. Big news. April glanced at the group of defeated soldiers on the ground. Although she didn't know the cause and effect of what happened. But the fact is right in front of us. The invincible Avengers were defeated by this thunderstorm. And this news spread quickly, scattered into thousands of homes in New York City. In this process, There will also be no shortage of reporters holding the press conference to join in the fun. You know, before setting off to explore the thunder and the giant tree, Captain Steve had already comforted them, saying that he would return victorious. Captain Steve was too confident, as if everything was infallible. This will make those reporters happy, waiting for the big news to come with joy. But what about the result? Captain Steve betrayed the trust of these reporters. He caused these partners to miss the opportunity to increase their wages and first-hand information. Does this stop people from making money? It's like killing your parents. I knew Captain Steve had a traitorous look on his face and kept his words. I really regret that I should have done that. If I could follow him, I would definitely be able to get this first-hand information. If I had known earlier, why would I have supported the fool Avengers? Let me tell you, it's not too late for us to rush over now. How can we have a mouthful of hot soup? Then what are you talking about? Let's go, let's go. The crowd of reporters chatted and dispersed in a short time, heading towards their destination. Director Nick behind the stage had a dark face. He almost trembled and took out a cigarette. But don't wait for him to light it up. Then he threw it to the ground hard. I knew it wasn't reliable. He was indignant, obviously tired of the negative consequences caused by Captain Steve's reckless leadership. He was so tired. He only wants to lead the team. But what about the result? Not only has the Avengers become a joke, but has S.H.I.E.L.D. been tarnished as well? Is this okay? This is the prosperous, snake S.H.I.E.L.D. bureau created by countless agents vying for the first place, constantly fighting in battles, and striving for their ideals. No, I have to save this situation. I have to ask Fitz to send out a small reconnaissance plane to find out the situation near the sacred tree. What if this can't be done? It will definitely be discredited by those shameless reporters. Director Nick said confidently, and then he quickly dialed a phone number. Shortly after his order was issued. At this New York City branch location, the set of reconnaissance planes shining with falcon patterns flew out. Is it because there is no general in the game? Fitz was the vanguard. The area affected by this thunder is getting smaller and smaller. We can get closer again. After April saw the changes in front of her, joy almost overflowed from her brows. She had long wanted to know who caused this scene. A powerful mutant? Is it a legendary god? Or aliens from different galaxies? Unknown. This is what draws everyone to explore. April enjoys the experience of challenging existential mysteries, and she thoroughly enjoys the process of chasing them. And now, the female reporter was on the road again. She was running, carrying the photographer with her towards the bright golden tree. Just when she was moving forward to the extreme, several green figures flashed past in the dark corner, like they were the most loyal guards. Guard the darkness, embrace the dawn. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are completing Master Lizon's mission faithfully. And among them, a big mouse suddenly appeared. Teacher Splinter, who had disappeared for a long time, had an indifferent attitude on his face, and as he stretched out his hand to pinch when he was growing his beard, there was no wind, blowing his sleeves loudly. Mr. Splinter's skills are getting stronger and stronger. It was obviously taught by Master Lizon. Why is he extraordinarily powerful? Leo's eyes showed envy. Although he is not bad at all and has mastered the power of fire attributes, does it mean that he has maximized his potential? The eldest of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is also aware of his own shortcomings and conduct targeted training. Leo is always improving. But not as good as Mr. Splinter. God knows how he practiced. God knows how strong he is now. Will there be 1/10 of Master Lizon? Wei Fu held the steel fork in his hand and wanted to try it, but when he thought of some bad memories, he gave up the idea. He didn't want to be spanked again. Especially Mr. Splinter's stick, which even beat billionaire Tony to the point of crying for his father and mother. Who can withstand this? Unless you have a hard head. Immediately, the strongest one, Mikey, stood up. He asked Master Mouse in front of him how strong he was. You want to try? Teacher Splinter was unequivocal and raised the stick in his hand. Hiss. That waifu had already taken a breath of cold air. Just when he thought his brother was going to be beaten. Sudden changes occur. Crash. Under the giant tree in the distance, the aura of the man who looked like a god and demon suddenly converged, as if it had condensed to a point. Or is it like a volcano gathering momentum before it erupts? Concentration produces a qualitative change. It is the transformation from man to God. Among the people present, only Mr. Splinter noticed the emotion. His expression changed. There was an expression of obsession, envy, and a little fear in his eyes. No way. Mr. Splinter is actually afraid of Mikey. How is this possible? Waifu stood there stupidly. Didn't he expect this to happen? But the reality is right in front of us. After Mikey asked, Teacher Splinter showed a fearful look. Can I also provoke my master? Waifu's eyes showed eagerness to try. Definitely. Master Mouse must have been bluffing earlier. How could he be so powerful? Now is the time for him to stand up and take charge. He wants to perform miracles. He wants to revolt. Let me try the teacher's skills. Waifu held the steel fork and rushed forward with great interest. He also used the ice escape to control the ice attribute power to gather around him. The biting frost accompanied him, rendering him like a winter killer, and in contrast, he raised the steel fork in his hand high and stabbed Master Mouse in front of him. Is he finally going to defeat Mr. Splinter? Tears of excitement almost welled up in the corners of his eyes. God knows, how deeply do these teenage mutant ninja turtles fear their teachers? This has been going on for more than 10 years. A filial son emerges from a stick. What, do you dare to have a rebellious period? Beat until you are convinced. Crash. But just when Waifu thought he was about to win. Then Teacher Splinter reached out a hand in an understatement, and then squeezed it gently. He just clamped down on this great man. Why can't I move? Waifu only felt a numbness all over his body, but he couldn't use any strength at all. Others are numb now. Could it be that my guess was wrong? Teacher Splinter, I think there may be a misunderstanding between us. Waifu stammered, but the next second, he felt like the world was spinning and he hit the ground hard. Under this fall, all the ice attribute power in Waifu's body dissipated. As if being restrained. Isn't this too exaggerated? Is it just a move? Leo's face was full of surprise. Did he know that his brother's strength was already considered a master in the field, at least not weaker than those so-called human heroes? But now, he didn't even catch one of Mr. Splinter's moves. Also under his gaze, the big mouse raised the stick, then waved it down gently. Bang! The turtle man let out a scream like airha. Pain. It hurts so much. Waifu was heartbroken on the spot. Apparently they were all taught by Master Li Zan. Why is the gap still so big? He was sobbing like a little girl who had been wronged and humiliated. But Teacher Splinter said humbly, compared to adults, I am just a grain of light, I can't resist the power of the bright moon. He has been able to perceive nature. He has been able to skillfully use the power of heaven and earth. The stronger he gets, the more he understands the gap between him and Li Zan. There are differences between people. There is a gap between this big mouse and Li Zan in the path to becoming a god. The gap is too big. How to play this? This Teacher Splinter will definitely follow Master Li Zan to the death. What is this called? This is called early investment. Maybe you can even be a god. In the land of China, this behavior is also called falongting, also called the power of following the dragon. For that person's chickens and dogs to ascend to heaven after attaining enlightenment. Crash. At the same time, the light on the sacred tree became more and more convergent, and it was golden, like a thick ink gold color. Is this a sign of extreme contraction of strength? The man who looked like a god and demon under the tree also exuded divine light. The silver power that symbolized the power of thunder was intertwined with the power that symbolized the divine tree, making him look like an immortal in the sky. This is the powerful impact caused by the transformation of the blood in Li Zan's body. Like reaching the sky in one step. Just like an ant practicing for a lifetime, it is not as good as an elephant or a whale. This is the upper limit of what genes can determine. And now Li Zan has the capital that he can crush with his talent. If you are not dissatisfied, then he will beat you until you are convinced. Crash. Li Zan stretched out his hand and pinched it casually, and heard muffled thunder sounds bursting out in the void, followed by the projection of the sacred tree behind him swaying, as if the divine king was declaring his sovereignty. Does the divine body alone have such an amazing effect? If you add the Xuanwu true skill that you have already mastered, wouldn't your martial arts cultivation become more and more powerful? Li Zan's eyes flashed with movement, and then he started to operate the magic method, causing the golden martial arts elixir in his body to absorb energy crazily, and began a wave of expansion and growth. Gradually, the sacred tree that covered the sky and the sun began to shrink, and gradually returned to nothingness. And who reappeared behind Li Zan? It's a terrifying image like Xuanwu in mythology. Is it the martial arts image? It is the true form of Xuanwu. Roar! The huge monster that came out of the barbaric era was looking up to the sky and roaring. It rages with thunder and hurricane. It blocks out the sky and the sun. It's arrogant. Even superheroes would be afraid if they saw it. Are superheroes people too? And this terrifying Xuanwu Dharma image is inhuman. When Li Zan's Xuanwu true skill was combined with his own bloodline, the effect that exploded was 1 + 1 that was far greater than 2. What is this equivalent to? Is this equivalent to a struggle between great powers, replacing the deterrence of missiles with the deterrence of nuclear weapons? This is an increase of thousands of times. It is also the potential in Li Zan's body that is strong enough. So when he displayed and used the Xuanwu true skill, only then can such a powerful effect be produced. Crash! And outside the sky, the small reconnaissance plane was rushing over. At the top of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Falcon pattern, there is a 360-degree camera recording. Director Nick, who was staying on the other side, looked across the lake through his high-tech bracelet. When he clearly saw the live scene, he couldn't help but feel nervous. What is that scary, big turtle? What the hell is that big snake on top of that big turtle? He is the agent chief, who sits in the position of director. He knows many secrets that others don't know. But now Director Nick is still confused. He couldn't understand. But does he know about this terrifying monster? If he wreaks havoc, I wonder what kind of horrific impact it will have. Director Nick had a grimace on his face, looking like he was serving the country and the people. As if, at this moment, he became righteous, and S.H.I.E.L.D. has also become the Justice Department. And justice will be upright in front of the world. The light is immortal. Cool, this is so cool. Under the dancing shadows of the trees. But there were 2 figures running past quickly. As the female reporter and photographer continued to approach, April also saw the sacred tree disappearing, the giant beast flying across the sky, the terrifying and astonishing phenomenon in the sky. And while she was looking at it from a distance, I also saw a figure under the Xuanwu, that peerless grace. It's just like what I imagined. He must be that kind of god. The female reporter murmured, her eyes showing excitement and expectation. You know, she put in a lot of effort for this first-hand information. Just by being in danger, she has already done things that ordinary people cannot do. Not to mention, we have to face the unknown existence. Swish, swish, swish. April's footsteps even became softer. As she walked forward, the man seemed to be aware of it and turned his head. As he raised his arm to grab her, boom, muffled thunder. There was a violent muffled sound in the sky. Immediately afterwards, the scorching flames were mixed with thunder and lightning. It condenses into a magnificent and unpredictable picture. Like the aurora that appeared in the far north. But it is more eye-catching than the aurora. It's so beautiful. As a female reporter, April is naturally bold in her professional field, but the photographer following her is a little worried. He was frightened by the scene before him. You know, he is just an ordinary person. But I don't have the courage to face this kind of supernatural power. In his opinion, his partner is too courageous, and he can actually remain calm in the face of danger. If his professionalism as a photographer hadn't constrained him, he had long since disappeared without a trace. Crash. Just when the photographer was highly nervous, an accidental glance shocked him. How come? He glanced at the corner not far away and exclaimed. How cowardly you are. Seeing this situation, April just shook her head. She didn't think that the photographer had a good mentality of his own. He was just an egg. What kind of fuss did you encounter? Just messed up. No, it's not. Come and take a look. The photographer was almost crying, but where his fingertips pointed, several figures slowly appeared. Then let's see. April didn't believe what her companion said, but she couldn't resist his repeated appeals. Then she turned her head and looked. Also under her direct gaze, the tall and tall Mouse Master and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come into view. Did you meet them here too? The female reporter's face was filled with joy. She wanted to thank these good partners, for saving her in the first place. Let's go take a look. Before the female reporter finished speaking, she ran towards the place not far away. The photographer gritted his teeth when he saw this situation and almost cried, but in the end he followed quickly because he didn't want to be abandoned in this place. And as the distance between them and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles became closer, that amazing scene happened. The leader, Master Mouse, slowly knelt down towards the sacred tree. The 3 Ninja Turtles also slowly knelt down, as if on a pilgrimage. Their faces showed expressions of piety and faith. It's like doing something very sacred. April was a little stunned when she saw this. Did she know that these are all powerful superheroes? If you were an ordinary person, would you still be bewitched? But these are all capable people, right? Why are they like this? April murmured. Did a liar trick them? As soon as this idea appeared, the female reporter shook her head and rejected it. And after eliminating the most unlikely options, so the only reliable ones left are these, animal, superheroes. Are they really looking for a very capable person? Or maybe it's a god? April's eyes showed anticipation. She felt like she was revealing something great. She felt like she was getting close to the legendary god. She waved her fists, her face full of excitement. If that's the case, that would be so cool. And just when she was excited, a reconnaissance plane flew over in the sky not far away. It flew very fast, and was in front of her in the blink of an eye, but as it scanned the terrifying Xuanwu image, at that time, something extremely strange happened. The reconnaissance plane with the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo disintegrated in the air, as if it encountered some kind of force majeure. This is, April thought with some confusion, did that god take action? At the same time, above the figure under the terrifying Xuanwu, there were bursts of beast roars, as if they were the legendary fire unicorns. Oh my god, what is that? April was stunned. Under her gaze, first a ball of flowing flame appeared. Then it spread into a terrifying sea of lava and fire. That scorching, scalding heat wave seemed to be able to melt everything. Also surrounded by this flame, that man who looked like an immortal. There is a roaring blood-colored unicorn dharma lingering around him. Destroy, chaos, killing. The aura of the killer continued to permeate the air. When Li Zan first became a superhero, it is relying on this crazy Qilin blood as the foundation. Now, with Li Zan ascending to the throne of God, under the stimulation of the Xuanwu true skill, the power of this holy beast has been stimulated again. The original fire unicorn is auspicious and a mythical beast that protects the dragon's veins. But this crazy unicorn has completely reversed its situation, and its blood contains endless murderous intent. When the phantom of the fire unicorn lingered on Li Zan's body, it seemed like a terrifying monster crawling out of hell, with the aura of holding a butcher's knife and wanting to slaughter all living beings. The next second, that crazy unicorn roared into the air, as if he was wantonly declaring his sovereignty. Can it be followed immediately? Crash. When Li Zan turned his hand into a sword, the unstoppable magic sword was swayed out, making this crazy unicorn become docile again. It gently rubbed the palm of the man next to it, as if it had turned into a licking dog. But when his eyes looked around, they were so aggressive. Like Erha, who is bullying others. Will die. But the female reporter looking from a distance felt a biting chill. You must know that this female reporter is not timid. But now I am so frightened that my face turns pale. She even felt that if she didn't pay attention, she would die on the spot. How is this possible? Director Nick also clearly saw the figure under the terrifying Dharma form through the last picture transmitted by the monitor before it was broken. Is this a character he never thought of? Is this actually the Bloody Hand Butcher? This greatly disrupted his plan. Did you know that Li Zan's thighs were so thick? He's going to invite that shitty Iron Man. Isn't this picking up sesame seeds and losing watermelon? This shield makes me angry and annoyed. When the love reaches the depths, I want to slap myself twice. If the Avengers' reputation hadn't become so bad, this braised egg director still has his own dignity and persistence. But now, is he watching the Avengers play their good cards to pieces step by step? Not only is Iron Man a cripple, not only Black Widow and Hawkeye lost face, even the good reputation that Captain Steve has accumulated over the past few decades has been consumed by most of it. God knows in the past, how respected is Captain Steve? But now that their selfish faces have been exposed, didn't he just collapse the house? If he hadn't contacted the media to carry out the cleansing activities. This Avengers alliance is useless. But the Butcher Liaison is different. Since he was expelled from S.H.I.E.L.D., he has not only flourished, but also vigorously carried out affordable electricity activities. Public opinion has risen again and again, and now, his strength has been completely exposed. If it can be expected, he has such strong fighting power now. Director Nick can't treat him as an ancestor. The terrifying Xuanwu Dharma appearance and the Divine Tree Dharma appearance don't look like simple things. Predictable. When the residents of New York City learned of his terrifying power, what kind of upsurge of respect will there be? Will he ascend to the throne of God because of his strength? He will receive cheers and murmurs from everyone. And the Avengers rolled into the smoke. Director Nick clutched the high-tech bracelet, his face turned white, and his teeth were gritted to death. Sour. Is he so sour? Crash. It was crowded. Sparse. There was also the sound of sneakers and high heels hitting the ground. It turned out to be reporters and photographers. As this group of reporters who had fled the S.H.I.E.L.D. press conference arrived at the riverbank one after another, they started running wildly, wanting to know what was hidden under the terrifying Xuanwu Dharma. To actually make the invincible Avengers lose. Although they are also afraid of encountering any unexpected events. Although they are also afraid of death. But the power of money drives them to keep moving forward. What does this mean? Does this mean that capital moves people's hearts? Or is it that people always have ambitions for extraordinary power like a moth flying into a flame? Roar. The terrifying Xuanwu roared. It puffs out smoke. It breathes out every time. It's like God is angry. And under this Xuanwu law, under the blazing everlasting flames, the crazy unicorn gradually revealed its whole body. It has been subdued by Liaison. As for the 9-llama fox in Liaison's body, its eyes widened. It didn't expect that its new master would be so powerful. Even old man Lu Dao can't compare, right? 9 llamas murmured. And I shrunk in that space cowardly. As long as you don't cause trouble for him. He is a cute, docile, and obedient fox. As for the female reporter April, who finally came to the terrifying vision after going through all kinds of hardships. She finally got what she wanted. She looked eagerly at the man in front of her. Her face showed various expressions of excitement, surprise, and shock. She was stammering and speechless. Great Love Butcher, you are actually a god on earth. I prefer you to call me, the Bloody Hand Butcher, that kind of unruly look. Liaison spread his hands. He acted very easygoing. But the fire unicorn derived from his bloodline behind him roared. Like a loyal dog that protects its owner. Is this fire unicorn originally a killing madman? But who allowed Liaison to master the demon heart crossing? Are you crazy? I'm even crazier. Liaison subdued him smoothly, and this also gave the female reporter in front of him a show of strength, making her face turn red. The effect was obvious. The female reporter seemed to be even more excited. April looked on with fascination. Does she really admire the man in front of her? Even Liaison could wave his hand. And she died. But who can resist this powerful strength? What if you could see Superman appear in front of you? This will surely be an excitement and joy beyond ordinary people's expectations. I am willing even to die. A few days later, as news about the superhero Butcher spread in New York City, the voices of the people are getting louder and louder. It even generated unprecedented heated discussion. Originally, the character set up by Liaison hated evil, was decisive in killing, and pursued justice. Therefore, when prisoners were captured, there was often a trial behavior. In the process, because the criminals were afraid of their lives, they spread rumors and deliberately amplified the Butcher's sense of crisis. They advertised that the Butcher is crazy. All of New York City was a cattle ranch to him. And all are lambs. This view has been maliciously spread and exploited by some keyboard warriors. Liaison's just act was slandered as a violent massacre. But what now? The situation is very different again. When you are only partially stronger than the people around you, you will attract envy, jealousy, and hatred. But when the power you show is too strong, you will become a partner of justice. Is this what Liaison is? His fame grew. He is like a popular fried chicken, popular throughout New York City, and radiating outwards in a diffuse manner. Love the butcher. Butcher of paradise. The invincible butcher. Slogans like this gradually appeared on the streets. No doubt, Li Xuanhong exploded. Coupled with the affordable electricity project he developed, he successfully led all poor people to the new world. He is the Thunder King of the new era. As Li Zan became more and more accepted by the public, the research on self-healing potions in the laboratory of Milcom Industrial Group also produced results. Dr. Lizard has been studying limb regeneration technology, but he just took it a step further and turned himself into a lizard. But when he received funding from Li Zan, the roadblocks to success were removed. Need technology, have technology. If you want money, get money. There are people who need people. In addition, Dr. Octopus can be used as a scientific research team. This is simply the ecstasy of capitalists. Dr. Lizard raised a fresh tube of test tube medicine in front of him and held it carefully in front of his eyes. He looked at the emerald-colored liquid carefully, his eyes full of joy. Dr. Octopus fell down on his seat tiredly. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and felt a little tired. During the past few days of studying all night long, Dr. Otto has already reached an overloaded state. If it weren't for helping one's colleagues, he definitely won't work so seriously. Does he feel like his body is being hollowed out now? He is so tired. But drive. Otto has no regrets. In the joint research with Dr. Lizard, in the experiments on living mice in this laboratory, they saw how effective this self-healing drug number 1 is, and it can cure diseases. Even if the heart is broken, even if you are seriously ill, you will recover in a short time, and you can strengthen your body without illness, and you can quickly restore your personal physical strength and enhance your personal physique. In this world, there is no medical effect that can reach this level. Although it has not been tested on humans. But Dr. Otto has already determined that this would be the perfect guinea pig. It will definitely succeed. If there must be an experimenter, let me do it. Goo-doo-doo. Just when Dr. Lizard was intoxicated with himself, Dr. Octopus, who was slumped in the chair, controlled the mechanical arm to take the potion, unscrewed it easily, and poured it into his mouth. Did this all happen too fast? Did this all happen too naturally? So much so that Dr. Lizard didn't even react. He exclaimed, "Dr. Otto, you shouldn't do such a wrong thing." Dr. Octopus laughed. He felt the empty feeling in his body being quickly filled. He felt the body change from weak to vibrant. Is this effect what they are after? Dr. Connors, we are actually only one step away from victory. You should be bolder. While we cannot determine war, we can end disease. We will change the world. We succeeded. Dr. Octopus walked up to him and gave him a big hug. Yes, we succeeded. Dr. Lizard repeated these words, and gradually, joy appeared on his face. After all, Dr. Otto didn't find volunteers for the experiment, but did it himself. Although the testing process was reckless. But they succeeded. What a fearless spirit is this? Is this dedication to science? Tap tap tap. That's when Li Zan also walked in from outside the house. Looking at the two of them, he knew that the experiment was making good progress. He said, "It looks like we will change the world." Yes, we will change the world. Dr. Lizard and Dr. Octopus then reiterated. High morale, hot-blooded, look forward to a simple ideal. And this kind of power spurred by the depth of belief will definitely change the world. Zzzz. But the fire was mixed with the sound of mechanical collisions. Right inside Hankmer Advanced Industries. As Justin invited Ivan and Donnie, the inventive genius from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to come and give guidance. The research on mechanical armor has entered a period of rapid development. It is being updated at a speed visible to the naked eye. A completely new design was developed on the first day. The overall framework was created the next day. On the third day, different joints and components were manufactured. Is it time to assemble it now? This crazy R&D speed. CEO Justin was dumbfounded. Is this why he couldn't catch up with Tony Iron Man before? It turns out that the R&D team he hired was not talented enough. But with the help of Butcher Li Zan. But he can enjoy the convenience given by genius. It's just around the corner that Iron Man Tony will become his defeated enemy. God knows how many times Tony made him suffer. God knows how overwhelmed Hankmer Advanced Industries was by Stark Industries. But now everything is different. Dawn is coming. President Justin danced excitedly. It was also at this time that his female secretary came over and said, "The number 0 armor is assembled. Do you recommend an armed test?" "Okay, great." Justin staggered and trotted towards the laboratory. He saw the 5-meter-tall steel giant. Next to the Iron Overlord mecha, Ivan took off his sunglasses, while Donnie made a gesture, as if to say, "Let's go find the military forces to test mechas, right?" Although this is already the most simplified version of the armor. Although this is already the number 0 armor designed by Donnie and Ivan, is it used as a weapon to collect data and create a stronger Iron Legion? But to Ivan, he looked like a steel overlord, full of suffocation. And Iron Man Tony is in danger. So, how are you going to deal with Iron Tony? Ivan mentioned this, as if accidentally, from the side. But you only need to think of his identity to know. This guy and Tony have a feud. So this is my attitude. Justin narrowed his eyes and said thoughtfully, "I will contact my friends in the military to conduct an armor exercise, and invite Iron Man's good friend, Colonel Rhodes, to observe at the scene. Believe me, he will never tolerate this thing provoking his friends. Then he can't help but drive a war machine to take action. Yes, but he will be beaten to pieces. When the time comes, Iron Man Tony's face will definitely not look good. Will he challenge me? And our invincible Iron Overlord will defeat him." Ivan is full of confidence. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Donnie beside him also nodded and said, "Although our Iron Overlord is only a prototype, I think it will not be inferior to any of Iron Man's armors. This is not a casual boast. After all, this prototype is equipped with a full range of weapons, not only a machine gun with a tank barrel caliber, but also a sharp energy blade hanging on the back, as well as a booster thruster and a stored energy ray cannon. It is conceivable that when this thing moves, how terrible harm will it cause? In addition, this Iron Overlord is equipped with 3 small nuclear reactors, 1 on the chest and 2 legs. This is not simply multiplied by 3 times, but super doubled. The power that explodes will be enough to shatter everything." The next few days, with the arrangements of Hankmer Advanced Industries, the test on the Iron Overlord prototype is also warming up and spreading towards the surrounding areas of New York City. These media are overjoyed. They are all rushing to release news. In normal times, Iron Man Tony is a rich boy, but no one can punish him. But what now? Hankmer Advanced Industries actually claimed to have created a brand new battle armor. You know, this is a slap in Tony's face. He claims that no one will be able to develop mecha technology in 20 years. But now, isn't this done? They don't expect that Hankmer Advanced Industries mecha will be the most advanced, but as long as it has a certain combat effectiveness, reporters can brag about it as being as powerful as Iron Man. When the time comes, what if Tony's face turns black? He is a destined loser. Clang. In this military camp. As Iron Man Tony's friend Colonel Rhodes saw the news, he smashed the steel cup in his hand angrily. Is he fighting for his good friend Tony? Does he know how loving his friends are? He did not allow Tony to be slandered by newspaper reporters. After all, if even superheroes were destroyed, then the world would be bad. In this process, Colonel Rhodes completely abandoned the criticism of social fairness, and instead put on colored glasses. He typically wore the same pants as Iron Man Tony, so he had this feeling of a dog jumping over the wall. Judging from Iron Man Tony's experience in American comics, he must be better dead than alive. After all, the Illuminati organization formed by Iron Man Tony is notorious. Just after the Hulk made a big fuss in Las Vegas, these members jumped out, blamed, regarded Banner as a time bomb, and exiled him into the universe. Although the conflict was temporarily resolved, this had also indirectly led to the infamous Hulk vs. New York City event in the future. In the subsequent secret invasion incident, in order to warn the Skrulls not to use their wrong ideas, the Illuminati single-handedly broke into the Cthulhu planet, used force to deter them, and spoke righteously. He said that if they dared to infringe, they would be violently attacked by the strongest superheroes. But the result was very disappointing. Unfortunately, 6 people were captured. During their imprisonment, the Skrulls also conducted a lot of physical research on each of the 6 people, laying the groundwork for the clones. This is a typical example of high-mindedness and low-handedness. What can't be done? There is nothing left to eat. If the multi-universe loses these pig teammates, who knows how long it will be peaceful. I will definitely save face for Tony. But Colonel Rhodes spoke sonorously and forcefully. Just below the screen where his eyes were staring straight at. The photo displayed on the table was a silhouette of Tony embracing him. What a pure friendship. What a friendship worth singing. The colonel thought that during the mecha exercise, he would put on the steel armor given by Tony and compete with Hankmer Advanced Industries, and he would definitely be able to slap the blind reporters in the face. It was also at this time that New York City was in full swing due to the robot armor incident, and it was getting more and more intense. Downstairs at Osborne Industries. But there was a cowardly male electrician who shrank down. He carefully walked into the glass door, and then swiped the employee card from his arms to access the door. However, he did not dare to have any interaction with anyone, and lowered his head towards the door. Walk inside. As a doctoral student who graduated from the electrical major, Max has his own talent in power grids, and he independently designed and completed the power supply diagram of the entire building. It can be said that he is the hero of this building. But he didn't get the respect he deserved. He was even ridiculed as a weirdo who didn't interact with others. He was like a poor pug. Even the wavy female receptionist who entertains the guests won't give him a good look. After all, he is not as glamorous as those white-collar workers sitting in the office, right? So what if Max is a skilled worker? He deserves to be a rough guy. Clang. After the heavy sliding door was closed, Max came to the power supply room on the third floor underground, surrounded by countless water tanks, and inside were electric eels. This was a workshop that relied on biological power generation and was a masterpiece of his genius invention. This is more environmentally friendly and practical than industrial power generation. But this didn't get the little green goblin Osborne's attention. He just thought it was energy saving and environmental protection. Fortunately, Max doesn't care about honor either. He just wants to curl up in his own world and look at the changes in the world with his humble eyes. Superheroes are so cool. I never thought Iron Man and Captain America could be such disgusting people. Let me tell you, this butcher is the real superhero. Even when climbing stairs, he was also watching the web page with great interest. But sudden changes can occur. How come? Max seemed to have seen some horrifying news. His face changed drastically. There was some hysteria. How is that possible? Then how could Spider-Man Peter kill someone? This shouldn't happen, although the outside media has already called Peter the Spider Demon. But as Max, who has watched Spider-Man grow up all the way, he has his own set of judgments, he has his own principles of doing things, and he strongly agrees with Peter's behavior. Although his recent series of actions seem very dark, so what? Max just likes Peter as Spider-Man. He is a huge fan. But the news pushed by the current mobile app says there are signs of gnawing in Hell's Kitchen. Spider-Man is suspected of committing a crime. There are countless spider threads at the murder scene. Does it mean that the spider demon has degenerated into a murderer? Sincerely warning the general public, do not stay out late at night. That's not true. The superhero I love wouldn't be like this. Mike shook his head wildly. This excessive movement even caused him to lose his balance, his feet fell to the ground, and he fell down on the steps. The fall did not stop, and he rolled down the steps. Fortunately, at the last minute, he reached out and grabbed the armrest, but his body was already hanging in the air. Just when he lowered his head and looked behind him, the electric eels in the water tank are twisting their bodies and releasing light blue electricity. 10 million. Don't fall down. Max struggled wildly, trying to get himself out of the predicament, but his palm slipped away inch by inch. Finally, he closed his eyes in despair. As the man fell into the pool, the powerful electric current swayed brightly, penetrating his body in an instant, and adding layers of blue light to his flesh and bones. Come, join the glorious evolution. Boundless pain surrounded him. The sun is shining brightly. In the military camp. As the truck from Hankmer Industries arrived at the training venue, the soldiers were looking forward to it. Just in the morning, the chief announced an important news, that they were lucky enough to watch the showdown between Iron Man and Iron Man. That was great fun. You must know that the cool armor invented by Tony has made all young people popular. Those manufacturers have taken advantage of the trend and launched a series of peripheral toys. Without exception, those figures are selling like crazy. But now, Hankmer Industries actually launched a suit that can compete with Iron Man. Does this make Colonel Rhodes very angry? He even said that he would slap Hankmer Industries in the face during the weapons display. He wanted to prove that the armor developed by his good friend Tony was the most powerful. Crash! A beam of fire fell from the sky. Bang! When the black armor mask named War Machine opened, the arrival of Colonel Rhodes made the soldiers in the entire venue cheer. He also waved his hands like a star, and then said, "Be quiet, we still have things to do." Colonel Rhodes turned to look at Hankmer Industries' truck. Under his gaze, the door slowly opened. What kind of armor will this be? Click. But it was a pair of human leather shoes that appeared first. What followed was a face that felt a little beaten. He holds a toothpick in his mouth. He glanced around with some arrogance. "It looks like you are ready," Ivan muttered. "This is..." Before Colonel Rhodes could recover, he saw the man take out a controller from his arms and press it. Bang! The truck's cabin opened in response. And the terrifying Iron Overlord hidden inside also appeared in front of everyone. That tall, that towering, that terrifying steel monster. Just his appearance attracted everyone's attention. Even in a disciplined army, there are also words like fake squid and mother fake popping up one after another. They are all young people. Even those who have seen Colonel Rhodes' mechas in normal times are only ordinary people's file size. But what Hankmer Industries brought this time was too big. That War Machine armor looked like a child that hadn't grown up in front of him. Is this a slap in the face? Colonel Rhodes' face gradually darkened. He didn't expect to encounter such a tough opponent. He originally thought it was about the same size as Tony's armor. But what's the result? But it's 2 times bigger. Just looking at the steel armor is a bit daunting. It's even more difficult to imagine what we will face next. Just when the colonel fell into silence, the president of Hankmer Industries walked over from not far away, and a bunch of military camp bosses standing beside him were also talking critically, as if they were talking. Cheers for this steel armor. Is this supposed to belong to him? There was a big gap in Colonel Rhodes' heart. Although he said he wanted to treat him as part of the military camp, in fact, he was already a star in the military camp. Has he already enjoyed this convenience? But what now? That CEO Justin, this stupid businessman actually took away his halo. Just when he was angry. Then President Justin said, "Is it time to start practicing?" The big guys in the military camp nodded, and then they sent a general, who was not very high in military rank, and came over and said to Colonel Rhodes, "Get ready to fight, fight well, you are now, but it represents our face. I will never disappoint the commander's expectations." Colonel Rhodes nodded affirmatively, but as he looked at the Iron Overlord opponent, he still couldn't help but feel guilty. He feels a little wilted. But Ivan, standing next to the Iron Overlord, became more motivated. He looked at Rhodes in front of him. What he was thinking about was Iron Man Tony. What if he drove the Iron Overlord and knocked down the armor created by Tony? Does this mean that Iron Man has lost his halo? Just a billionaire. His Ivan family is the most powerful. Boom. When Ivan activated the Iron Overlord, the pale white light emerged from the eyes of the steel giant, followed by a harsh friction sound. Crash. The Iron Overlord jumped up, and then slammed down hard, creating a big hole in the solid ground. The dust is rolling, and the giant squeaks. Crash. Countless rubbles shot out, and spreading along the position of the giant's fist, are there also spider web cracks more than 10 meters long. It's hard to imagine this trick falling on someone. What terrible impact will it have? Pumbaa. Just when Colonel Rhodes raised his head stiffly, he saw the terrifying Iron Overlord gearing up, obviously wanting to do something. The man became increasingly weak. But suddenly, there was an explosion in the military camp. As if a handful of sesame seeds were sprinkled into hot oil. Does it make this battle more interesting? Come on, War Machine. Colonel Rhodes will win. Go ahead and fight like a man. Don't betray our trust. Listen to the encouragement around you. Colonel Rhodes' eyes gradually became firmer. He is a superhero who drives a suit, right? He carries the expectations of all his companions in the military camp, right? How could he lose? Will he win? Wow. The War Machine's eyes glowed red, and immediately, Colonel Rhodes drove it and fired a series of bullets. Ta 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 ta, like a flaming snake streaking across the sky. After a harsh sound was heard from a distance. Just one punch. The Iron Overlord driven by Ivan opened his palm, and after catching the rapidly shooting bullet, he took advantage of the moment of punching. Reflected those dozens of bullets back. This war machine dodges very quickly. But I only scratched a few. So he staggered a few times, almost falling to the ground. And the feeling of powerlessness suddenly surged into Colonel Rhodes' heart. This opponent is too strong. But I also have my own, unique weapon. Small pursuit bullet. War Machine half knelt on the ground, and then the cannon hole erected behind him was also aimed at the Iron Overlord, and it fired violently. Boom. The astonishing heat wave swept along with the sonic boom. Then it fell with a scorching explosion of light. But the terrifying Iron Overlord did not fall. He took it hard. Like a lion opened his eyes. Z. Streams of blue arc light appeared behind Iron Overlord, and he started the thruster, approaching the war machine almost instantly. And the next second, it's a heavy punch. Clang. This war machine took the blow hard. It's like planting onions on a cement floor. Colonel Rhodes' calf was completely hammered into the ground. Too violent. Is this treating people like toys? Everyone on the field took a breath. Is this Iron Overlord several times stronger than the armor invented by Iron Man? Does this mean that the stinky Iron Man has become a remnant that has been eliminated? Everyone at the scene had different thoughts. Extremely excited again. It seems like you are witnessing history. Bang bang bang. The Iron Overlord fired his hammer one after another. He drove the man in front of him into the ground. Zila. As the final blow fell, all that is left of this man is his head, which has not been buried in the ground. The Iron Overlord tore off Colonel Rhodes' mask again. The man, whose eyes were full of firmness, had a dull face at the moment, and he was stammering and speechless. He felt as if his legs were broken, and there was a tearing pain. But how can this physical pain compare to the mental pain? He drove the powerful armor developed by Tony, but lost to the inferior imitation produced by the Hankmer Industries. He should have been enjoying countless cheers and applause. But he failed miserably. He thought of the full of confidence before the battle, but felt that he had become a fool. People are stupid. It seems the cooperation between us can start smoothly. Although the big guys in these military camps were not happy about being defeated, they couldn't help but feel a little happy after thinking that they could purchase such a weapon. They can possess such a powerful weapon. President Justin also responded with a smile, but did not mention the price. He just said, there will be a dedicated team to discuss it. He needs to make a killing. As for Ivan in the mecha, he curled his lips. Is this opponent too weak? Even the passion he had when he first mentioned fighting quickly dissipated. Not even reliable data collected. It seems like we have to rely on Iron Man. If you fight him, it must be extremely interesting. As for the production and sales of armor, Ivan glanced at the group of excited generals with a mocking look on his face. How could they not leave any backup plan behind? Not only do they want to harvest the wool of Hankmer Industries, not only do they want to share the sales money, they also want to add insult to injury. They will leave a back door in the control core of the armor so that they can all be recalled when necessary. What is this equivalent to? Is this equivalent to having a prostitute for nothing and asking someone else to pay you back? It's like Qin Shi Huang touching the wire. He won. War Machine was defeated by the armor produced by Hankmer Industries. The difference in strength between the two sides in the battle armor duel is too big. The War Machine was smashed into the ground by Iron Overlord, and the scene was extremely bloody. Iron Man is no longer the technological light of the people. And Hankmer Industries' technology will become a steel barrier to protect mankind. Ivan shouted to Tony that he was going to drive the invincible Iron Overlord to fight against the so-called Iron Man. With the help of Hankmer Industries, that war machine became a stepping stone. And the powerful Iron Overlord is also revealed to everyone. That terrifying and towering physique. That powerful and terrifying power. Even if it's just a glance from a distance. Will you also be shocked by that armor? And this also made Hankmer Industries the center of the storm in New York City. Is this an incredible invention? Especially the chief designer or Ivan. Originally, with Lee Zon's help, the media knew about the grudge between him and Iron Man. Unexpectedly, now he has actually developed a completely new armor. Is he going to step Tony into the dirt? Is this more interesting than pure technological success? Feud. This is great. Zzzz. At the same time, inside the Osborn Industrial Building, in the water tank that was supposed to be filled with electric eels, one could see dead eels, piled on the water like piles of junk from the old era. But at the bottom of the water tank, there were balls of silver blue arc light flowing out. It seems to imply the arrival of a new era. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.